Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Talking Landscape Photography for tonight. It's awesome to be back, and very, very keen to very happy to have Paul back in the country. He's been off in New Zealand for a while, and I'm very excited to see all of the images that he's going to have to share with us tonight. Welcome back to Oz, Paul. How's your trip?
Oh man, it's wow, 2 months feels like half a year almost, like with all the things I sort of experienced, went through and that and sort of reconnecting with the homeland in a way that I haven't done in a long time, especially to Wai Pounamu, the South Island, where I spent 5 years of my life. In my adventurous 20s, shall we say, really getting into the outdoor life, and probably when I really first started getting into photography, to be honest. So I felt like I relived it and even sort of went a bit further with it and reconnected with my homeland in a way that I just really needed to do. And part of the trip was planned, a beautiful workshop with my good friend Rachel Gillespie, and the rest of it was not. It was a very kind of unplanned, fluid, spontaneous, sort of big solo journey, largely up the central and west coast of the South Island. Culminating in that big Aurora chase, as we're all doing together, and incredible finish in Castle Hill, which is one of the more magical and mystical places probably ever been, to be honest. But I'll get into that a little bit later. So it's
Did you get the camera much out when you were back at home then, or was that more just focusing on family time?
oh no, well, after that I went home and just I've got seven nieces and nephews now and no kids of my own. So it's kind of very special to me to be a real and tangible part of their lives and not just an occasional FaceTime and so you got to put in the quality time and you've got to sort of, turn up to the matches and go on adventures and sit on the bed late at night giving advice and and support them through the injuries and the heartbreaks and all that kind of stuff that makes growing up and shaping who you are into a healthy sort of grounded congruent being. It's important to have people and I'm quite aware that as an uncle the dynamics power dynamics are a bit easier than with parents. And so I'm in a bit of a unique position there and I've been fostering those relationships for a long time. So anyway, a backpack jacket here with the old school labels, and that's a little bit of a throwback. I actually bought that in Timaru the day before the workshop, and that's one of the original labels. And I literally used to sell backpack gear for a living in my early 20s. It's one of my first jobs outside of university, and I remember coming home with a Christmas Santa sack of about $7,000 or $8,000 worth of MacPack gear once for myself, going Merry Christmas to me when I got my first
Wow, that's a good Christmas present.
pro deal for like 60% off. Um, so that was yeah, that was pretty magic. And I actually still have my original Olympus and Torre pack and Alpine jacket and Neve sleeping bag from that purchase, which would have been, geez, 28 years ago now. So a bit of a throwback in a way and a bit of a celebration. And
I was going to say it looks pretty retro, so there you go.
yeah. Well, I hope the show's piping through.
Yeah, no, she's all good.
Oh, yeah, still good. Excellent. And yeah, first of all, big shout off. Well, I'll let you catch up. Luke and I got a lot to catch up on because we literally had a couple of months away from each other. And I have to say, in the last 4 years, I don't think that's actually ever happened, except maybe one of your Antarctic trips, maybe. It's pretty
Yeah, yeah,
rare.
no, it's
Luke and I
been
are too far
ages.
apart from each other.
And it's the other thing that's interesting as well is that, it was very spontaneous, or not spontaneous, but I don't think you ever intended to be away for so long. So it was
Oh, no.
quite interesting just to, it's good that you made it back, but I was fully prepared for you to be over there for a longer period of time. But it's
Yeah, I
nice
mean,
that,
it kept extending. I mean, to be fair, I was planning on being in Svalbard this very week, actually, running a trip. And also Iceland and maybe a bit of more time in Oman and Arabia. But yeah, politics and a few things sort of happened out of my jurisdiction, which can happen in the polar regions. There's big money involved in running the ships and organize the trips well ahead of time, and sometimes they make judgment calls that you're not a part of. So that's partly why I had a big gap open up in the middle of the year. And I'm pretty good at filling gaps and knowing how to navigate gaps because I don't have a very particularly scheduled life. Although to be fair, August, September, October, November is looking pretty chockers. We've
mm,
got a bunch of amazing stuff together actually, and I'm also heading to Bhutan as well actually. So still a couple of spots free if you're keen on that. It's in September. Reach out. It's
Yeah, that was an incredible episode when we're talking about that. I just fell in love with the place through the pictures there. I've got to put it on my list too. Maybe I can jump in your backpack or something and
Yeah,
hitch a
I've
lift
had
over
quite a
there.
few sort of do you need any cooks or baggage handlers on the trip, and I mean it's a committed place to go, but it's like nothing I've experienced on Earth, that culture, and if you want to sort of we've got the show there if you want to go back and connect with that, and Adam's been going there for almost 15 years, I think, doing 9 or 10, maybe more actually journeys. So yeah, pretty privileged. My soul's ready to sing. That place just touches your soul in ways that you don't even expect. Maybe it's because you're so close to heaven, being up in the Himalayas. I don't know. With the people too. So
Oh
what's
no.
been your couple of months, Lukey? You're not much of a couch potato. You're always planning.
Oh, I've actually been a bit of a hermit lately, just working on my business and haven't done a huge amount of exciting stuff. I've been able to jump out and take a few Aurora shots here and there, and I'm running some photo walks this weekend, which I'm really excited about with Starlard's Camera House here in Hobart, and also Matt from Sony Australia is coming down as well. And we've sold out two, well, that was free. But we've got two walks booked out, and so that's pretty exciting. So yeah, hopefully there's a bit to see around Hobart. It's not quite the full Dark Mofo program this year, but the Winter Feast should still be fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to meeting everybody and seeing what we can find in the streets of Hobart, and doing a bit of street photography, low light photography. It's always a bit of fun this time of year, and I just love the fact that it's the middle of the year. It's cold. We just had snow on Mount Wellington today, Konani, and the streets are buzzing and everyone's out, and it's just a really great reason to get out there and enjoy um, life, I suppose, or just at least eating some good food and sharing some time with your friends. So yeah, really looking forward to it. Hopefully do maybe a bit of a snow trip coming up as well. Looking forward to that. I've got my workshop business accredited now for the National Tourism Association. So that's a really huge achievement to be able to have that. So it's quite exciting. Sustainable tourism accreditation. So that's yeah, really exciting to be able to put a bit more time and effort into my workshop business as well. So that's been great. And I've got a workshop coming up on the east coast of Tasmania, and then also working on one with Oliver Hone in the southwest coming up in September. And Paul and I are doing one in Bruni as well, which is coming up very shortly. So there's plus we've got our own couple other ones we're running for camera clubs later this year. So it's getting quite busy in the back half of the year. So I think it's nice to be a bit quieter now and consolidate things, and then it's going to get all hell's going to break loose, I think, in after August. So
Yeah, calm before the storm, but it's an appropriate time to let the seasons. Tasmania is a very seasonal place, so people are very used to adapting and accommodating and really embracing the seasons. It's some places in Australia that don't like that. It's sunny and blue sky for half a year and things don't change, and it's not like that here. And I got a good reminder coming home last night, admittedly around midnight, with the 5 degree fresh breeze greeting me as I came out of the airport, and the fresh rain, but the stars were out, and the red glow of winter feast, through the streets was greeting me as I was coming through, reminding me that's that time of year, and it really has woven into the culture of Tasmania, the Dark Mofo events and the winter feast events and everything about that, and I love it, and yeah, I've been lucky enough to even capture a few award-winning images around some of the art installations and things like that because it's so unique. So mind you that yeah, Tassie's just a little bit special, and it didn't escape my attention when I woke up this morning. I looked up at Kanani. I live on the slopes of Kanani that literally I could see that edge of snow at about the 800-meter mark, and I thought, oh, it was quite a bit up there at the moment. The rest of it was covered in cloud, I could tell. So yeah, beautiful greeting home. But tonight we're going to be talking more about this place here. It's
mm.
if anything, if Kanani is the kind of jewel of Hobart where I live, then Aoraki is kind of the jewel of Te Wai Pounamu. It's the biggest mountain in the South Island, and
What is
country.
the title to, I don't even want to butcher the language, Paul, but the what you've named it, is it the name of the South Island, is it?
Yeah. There's a different name for the North Island as well. Wai is water, and Pounamu is greenstone, and greenstone is very very significant to the Māori people in particular, and very symbolic and powerful and a big part of the culture. Here's a piece from the rivers in the South Island of New Zealand. This is in the shape of a toki, which is like an adze, like a almost like a functional but ceremonial kind of axe sort of shape. I don't go anywhere for the last sort of 40 years really without a piece over my heart, piece of home. And Pounamu is it's only found in the South Island of New Zealand in terms of New Zealand. There's a few other countries that have their own versions of jade. I think Canada and Russia and Japan, I think, are a few places, but New Zealand greenstone is kind of unique, and it has a lot of variations that are quite unique to here as well. And
So
like
the name
seriously, they don't
to
even.
Wai Pounamu, is that the land of greenstone? Is it? What's
I'll tell
the
you,
two?
Wai is water, and Pounamu is found in the water. It's only found in the rivers.
Ah,
Um, and yeah, so one of the reasons why it's so sacred is it's generally only found really high up and some of the higher, really quite difficult to get to sort of rivers, and it's very heavy, obviously, and that traditionally wasn't necessarily where they were living. So it took a big journey to go up there, not without risk, to even capture some of it and bring some of it back was so heavy. Often, days and days of mountain pass walking. And then its stone itself is incredibly hard. It's one of the hardest stones you can even attempt to chisel and shape. So a huge amount of effort is put into it, not only the capture of it, but also the shaping of it. So by the time it's been created into a piece, it's almost considered too arrogant to take it for yourself. So in their culture, you're not meant to take a piece for yourself at all. It needs to be gifted. And ceremonially, it was used in weddings. It was often worn by chieftains and then passed down from father to son. I said, in weddings, also used as gifts sometimes to appease war. Had a huge amount of value, and on a kind of more metaphysical, spiritual level, it's meant to absorb the mana and the spirit of the wearer. So the idea of passing it down from chief is quite powerful in that you're literally carrying some of the spirit of the wearer before with you.
wow.
So so yeah, I grew up with an old royal Māori family, and well, royal meaning they were reconnected, and actually one of the daughters was a lawyer on the Treaty of Waitangi even. And actually, I literally was just catching up with them last week, and I heard this case that she'd started 30 years ago has just come to fruition now with a successful result around some of the treaty issues. So yeah, there's a bit going on in New Zealand around that with the coalition government. It's quite an interesting shape at the moment, and a bit of light shining. And there was a really big protest even last week on sort of some of the rights of Māori people. But it's apart from that aspect of it, I think it's one of the most functionally um, bicultural places I've ever seen in the world or experienced. I grew up with mythology and language and anthems and stories of the Māori people through schooling, and it was quite a significant part of my life. Their own televisions, the radio stations, representation in Parliament. It's very close. We had that colonial history where they came here and there was huge wars and massive amounts of the Māori people were killed, largely through disease as well as hand-to-hand warfare. I mean, to be fair, they're quite a warring people themselves. They warred a lot amongst each other, but it's rare. And there were a number of treaties, but they did honor the Treaty of Waitangi, and that's the code and that's the line that's held the two cultures together and kept the accountability of how to navigate the future moving forward. It's not perfect, but it certainly sits in a really, yeah, much more positive space than say the Aboriginal culture here in Australia, relatively speaking. That's kind of comparing apples and oranges. They're very different people, different culture, but yeah. So the South Island was really important to me. I kind of it really shaped a lot of who I am. I think I left home when I was 17. I just lost my father and wasn't really sure what I was doing, and I just started a whole clean slate. Just turning 18 and moving to South Island, New Zealand for 5 years, and that was when I began my interest in photography. That's when I started doing my first solo trips into the wilderness and getting out and getting amongst it all, and it sort of really started shaping me into who I am today, and that kind of shaking the shackles off and starting afresh in a place where nobody knew you and you had no sort of baggage, as it were, or no expectations, probably more importantly, from other people, really let me sort of blossom into a different kind of person, I think, free of a lot of what I felt held to growing up. So yeah, really special to go back and spend not just a little bit of time, but quite a large amount of time there and a lot of solo time as well, and reliving and going back to some places that I literally have not even been to since literally the last week I left New Zealand. I left New Zealand from the South Island as well, actually. Um, in my mid-20s, a little bit later on, I literally last thing I did was walk the Track in Fiordland, before I headed off over to Tasmania, unknowingly, never even heard of Tasmania at the time, and it never came back. So
I was actually interested, Paul, in like, you know, a lot of people dream of New Zealand and you know, you live there and your family's there. Well, if you're from there, you don't live there now. So, and what's the emotions about coming home? Like, how does it feel like coming back to Tassie? And I know Tassie's a special place too, but it's must be feeling like torn between two loves in a way.
yeah, I mean, fairly. It's a bit strange that, and everyone asks me every time I go back, every single time, when are you coming back? Um, and where's home? And I think home, to have a wider conversation, to means three different things to me. It means a connection with land and country, is a word they use here in Australia in particular. It's family and it's community. And in my life, I've literally had home and those three different facets be in three different places at the same time. I felt like when I arrived in Tasmania, the land just sang to me and spoke to me like nowhere I've ever met in the world. And it really surprised me. When I lived in San Francisco, I felt like I'd found my community and the type of people that I really, really were most closely aligned with who I want to be and how I want to live. And of course, my family I'm super close with. I'm very, very lucky that way. We're a very, very small family, but we're super tight, super close. And yeah, those three things have been in different places for me for a lot of my adult life in particular. So it's been quite interesting reflecting on what home is and what connection is. And I think for me, as I was just alluding to before, going back to the South Island in particular was really powerful because it's where I first left. It's where I kind of initially started photography in the first place, and it's where my passion began and really developed. Also, my love for the natural world and guiding people out amongst it, which I've done for, I don't know, 28 years since. And even the start of my wilderness therapy career, which began very shortly after I left South Island, was kind of born through my connection with country and New Zealand in particular, and the South Island in particular. And yeah, it's kind of hard to put into words in a way. Look, it's a
Mm.
very personal, intimate, and almost spiritual sort of journey. And this one was really special, just coming back as an adult with the life experience that I have and a reflection back from 25 years before. And literally some of the places I literally hadn't been to for 25 years. So it was like walking in the door and thinking, well, what was I doing 25 years ago? How was I thinking? What did I believe in? How did I feel? What was my relationship to myself and photography and the world? And it was quite powerful, sort of giving yourself a little bit of space. And that was the gift, I guess, of losing those other trips where I would have been right around like a headless chook. I've got this space in the middle of the year. And I decided to, and I even used the word, I think at the end of the workshop, gift myself the time to journey through the South Island in my own time, my own way. And it was pretty freaking magic.
Is it the longest trip you've done in that over there, do you think? Or the longest amount of time you've been?
Pretty close. Yeah, I probably would be actually.
Right.
There's a couple of years where I've gone back two or three times, but this is, yeah, a good couple of months at least. This trip.
And how
And
can you give us some tips on couch surfing and how you make it
yeah,
last?
well, I couch surfed at Rachel's place the first few days. I saved a bit of money by going straight to Christchurch and not going to the family first. Um, did quite a lot of research. I managed to find a car down to almost $22, I think, to hire.
Whoa.
After the trip, I stayed at a few of the. I think they've changed the name. Just these juicy little like shoebox type Japanese style tube things you stay in. Mountain biking, I managed to borrow a $15,000 like unbelievable e-bike to go riding on around Queenstown from a friend of mine's son who I hadn't even met, just leaning on connections I had. Rachel knows a lot of people, so I leaned on some of those. I met and stayed with some of the people I met through my time judging the NZRPP Awards and being part of that community. In New Zealand, I actually stayed with the current president, actually. And funny enough, I didn't even know he was the president at the time. I was like, oh, yeah, he's still doing a bit of that. Oh, yeah, he didn't really say much. And I found out he's the pres. And so he set me up with a few things, a few places. Some of the pilots I flew with, I connected back through my good friend Scotty McCook, who'd been up there before, and connected me through the right people. Jumping on a few lastminute.com sort of sites. So I oscillated between a few hostels and some nights in the car and few people I knew, and the occasional splash out where I actually got a room to myself so I could get some sleep. But even then, the most I paid was $65, I think. So yeah, my
Very
juicy
good.
car, I ended up getting a juicy car for $34 a day, and God bless it, this little putt-putt thing. The battery died within 24 hours, and then it died again the next day. I was like, oh God, that's where you get your money's worth, I guess. But so I just got a pair of jumper leads and just parked next to people and winged it that way. So
Um,
yeah, I sort of went to places I really wanted to. I met some really crazy, interesting people. I'll show you a few photos I took of one amazing gentleman in particular. But the idea for Go It was born through actually, yeah, it was actually funny enough. I was judging the New Zealand Photography Awards, I think the seventh time, I think, a couple of years ago. And I was looking to go down the West Coast to hang out with my friend Jason, who is now the current president. And this massive storm came in and shut down the entire West Coast and even flooded Nelson where we're staying. And basically stuck my thumb out at the New Zealand Awards, and I ran around in a tuxedo at 2 in the morning asking someone for a ride down the East Coast. And Rachel, who I'd actually never met, put her hand up and said, "Sure, you get a ride with us." And so I jumped in the car with her at 6 the next morning after getting home at 4:30, and uh, and we just made a really strong connection. And with her and her wonderful partner Andrew Spencer, who's actually an amazing photographer in Kaikoura, very extremely competent commercial photographer as well, and has the best gear kit of any photographer I ever met in my life, as far as Canon shooters in particular. It's a bit jealous. Um, and Rachel's a very special person, and we have a lot of values and beliefs and a level of spirituality and appreciation and respect for culture and landscape and the power of wilderness that I don't always get to connect with a lot of people that way. And we've kept in touch ever since. And was on my mind for a while, and I actually had some clients say, "Hey, we're going to New Zealand. Do you want to run something for us or put something together for us, like a custom trip?" And I actually love doing that. In fact, it's probably my favorite thing to do, because I'm not like putting something out there and hoping people come. I already got people that are coming, and I just go back and forth and design it to create whatever experience they want, and they get a bit more say and autonomy about the kind of experience I want to have as well, rather than just being having to slot into what someone else has created. So I reached out straight away to Rachel because Rachel's got all the permitting with Doc and so on to run workshops there, which is not an easy thing to do. It's quite full on. It's took her and a group of colleagues over a year, I think, to even get it. And they're quite strict over there in terms of yeah, it's a bit full on, especially after the big eruption on White Island
White
where people
Island,
died.
yeah.
They've gone pretty crazy in terms of
Mm.
really, really on top of the OH&S. In fact, we actually had to carry a printer around on our workshop to print out forms every single day for OH&S reasons and permissions and risk management and that kind of thing. So it wasn't quite what I was
Wow.
expecting, but it's that's the level I've got to now over there. Maybe a little bit too far in my opinion, but at the same time, I respect sort of where they're coming from. And it's really only related to when you're going on dock land. And you're not always going on dock land, but they're often where a lot of the most amazing places are. So yeah, big hats off to Rachel. Rachel and I spent about 3 months sort of designing and going back and forth with different kind of itineraries, different lengths of time, different places to stay, um, and just kind of the ethos of how we wanted to run it. And we ended up adding another person into it, and that we actually got a professional driver on the trip. Because it was 10 days and 2,500 kilometers we drove in the end. And Rachel just said, "Look, I've done it before on my own, and it's already a lot going on. It's already pretty exhausting." And it was actually her uncle Dick, who is an amazing professional driver, amongst many other things. And he was such a character and such a gentleman and so on top of things. It was really, really added to the whole trip and made sure that Rachel and I were a lot fresher and more alert and switched on and more engaged with the clients the whole time as well. So ate into the margin a little bit, but it was totally worth it, and really rounded out the trip. So it felt super, super, super special, actually. So,
Do you think it's something you might do again next year, perhaps?
oh, absolutely, yeah. We've already picked the week for it. So
Oh,
it's
amazing.
11th
That's
and 20th of
awesome news,
April.
Paul. Must
So
be
we
great
called it
to
we called it
feel
the
like
best
you
of
can maintain that connection too. It's not just a
yeah,
kind of like a
and
one-off.
build on it too. Like I don't need any arm twisting to go back to Aotearoa anytime. But it particularly, in a very personal way, my mum's getting on, and I don't know much longer she's going to be around. And the kids are at that age where, they're quite influenced by who's around them. And, some of them are going to be leaving home soon and disappearing and not so not so engaged with family. So it's a really powerful time for me to go back as an uncle and as a brother and a son. So apart from my own natural love for the place anyway, it's yeah, I'll certainly be looking to spend more time there. And I think next year, Rachel and I are looking to do a best of autumn one and between 11th and 20th of April, which is absolute peak time for the
Oh wow, you couldn't
colours.
pick a better time to be over there. That's insane.
It's the week to do it,
Yeah.
and then potentially winter one as well in September.
That's
So
really great too that she's like that's a be a prime time for her to run a workshop and she's choosing to run it with you at that time. So that says a lot about how she feels about working with you as well. So that's really
oh,
great.
she's pretty busy. She's got a lot. Got a lot going on. She's just launched an app around Astro. She's a bit up your field. She's super keen in the Astro world and very engaged with it. And it's a big part of her life. She's quite engaged with the dark sky work going on over there as well. And
Cool.
she runs a lot of Astro workshops amongst other things. She does some beautiful ones with women's groups and empowerment sort of groups and kind of more holistic sort of where photography is just part of the workshop and connecting with self and the landscape is with it. It was woven in through it. So they're a bit more holistic, which I think is a really great idea. So Rachel's crooked bed at the moment, so I'll give her a big wave. I just realized Luke just said before the show, I wanted to get Rachel on. I was like, oh shit, I didn't think of that. And I thought it's
But
late at night. I know
yeah,
she's
that's all
crook and so on. So it's a big shout out. And I'll actually share my screen now and
right. Yeah, let's see some pics.
start with a photo
So it's fair to say
of the
then
lady
that
herself, actually.
what we'll be looking at then is pretty much exactly the same like timing is what if people were to join you next year, this would be the same sort of time frame as in the place will be looking similar.
Yeah, I mean, same as Tasmania, like with the
Yeah.
shift in autumn colours, you get a couple of weeks sort of plus or minus each year relative to the kind of season that's led up to it and what's coming behind it, the amount of rainfall, the amount of frost and so on. But that if you're going to pick a sweet spot, that's exactly it. It's Easter as well, so it's a little bit busier. It's crosses over school holidays, but even this time, it really wasn't a factor. We were going to some pretty remote places and tucked away areas and didn't really see
And
that many
also
people at
most of
all.
the tourists they're not really out at sunrise or sunset a lot of the time as well, which
No,
makes it
it's exactly right.
yeah.
So, here's a lovely rate. She's the most bouncy, down to earth, kind of connected, easygoing, but also super passionate about what she believes in person, and absolute joy to be around. And this is her Uncle Dick. That's another portrait I took of him.
Well,
Um,
that's a great portrait. And
up in the mountains, mountain man. They're both South Island locals, and going with people that are born and bred in a place, there's nothing quite like it, because it's not just a knowledge of the place, but they know people wherever you go, and the subtle things about where to eat or where to get petrol or in an emergency where to get the best gear or that kind of thing. And she also took me to, which I didn't even know about, the best camera store in the country, and it was freaking amazing. And I ended up splashing out on a
where was
very
that?
new piece of glass, and it's in Christchurch.
Oh,
It's called Photo and Video. It's just been taken over by new management, I think, but the original guy's still there, and they deal a lot internationally, and they have an incredible secondhand component to what they do that's better than I've ever seen anywhere in the world, actually. Personally, there might be a few examples here and there that I haven't come across, but for what's accessible in Australasia, I don't know if there's anything better. I used to deal with Michael's a little bit in Melbourne, but they shut down very sadly over a few years. So yeah, I'd reach out to them or I'll put you in touch with them, Luke, because they're pretty up there.
yeah, cool.
So this we started the trip with a bit of a bang. So we picked everyone up in Christchurch. I spent a few days with the family and sort of planning the trip and just getting through the P's and Q's in order and connecting with Dick too about how we wanted to run things. And then bang, I looked at the forecast and I was like, geez, the best aerial window is this afternoon, the same day we're picking everyone up. And it was like, oh crap. That's not a lot of lead-in time to pick up people, race out somewhere and throw in a plane, but it was the best window by far. So I front-loaded everyone. We'd already created like a WhatsApp group so we could all connect the night before and just said, look, this is the opportunity. And we made the aerial components optional, but everyone took them anyway.
I'd be
Just
crazy
take
not to, wouldn't you?
Well, that's exact. But at the same time, it's we did it in a very cost-effective way. We got a really good group rate through Rachel's contacts, and just being a larger group, and we were 3 or 4 months into planning, and they knew we were coming, and they got the right planes there ready for us, and so this was a 10-seater, I think this one, or 8-seater. Probably the best vehicle or aircraft I've ever been in for a group, actually, ever
Wow.
of that numbers.
It's not easy to do.
No, because often the bigger planes, they don't, it was very, very new and it had, beautiful kind of clean perspex sort of everywhere to shoot out of it. You can't really go on an hour and a half long flight in the Southern Alps with doors open with a group. It's just, you won't be able to feel your fingers after 5 minutes and there's no way you could get everyone in the same position with clear without glass. So I treated myself later on to one of my own, just hanging out the door. I'll tell you about that later. But this is one of the first shots I took. Just and I'd always wanted to go up the Godley Valley, not just the. So we actually flew from Tekapo, not Aoraki. And we got to the Godley Valley is the one that runs up sort of north of Tekapo, and we were going to split it into two flights. One so we could shoot the valley floor like this and get it in the high light, because if you go for a sunset shoot, this is already in shade, and you lose all that color and reflection and the density and of color. And so we ended up sort of flying up the valley and then looping around the back in one flight rather than two. And we went slightly later to try and get the best of both worlds. That's sort of actually looking out towards the west coast, out the back of Aoraki, and we were hoping to get on the western side of it, but it was a huge wind blowing, and the pilot was said it was a bit too dangerous to get around there. So I didn't get the back view with the western sunset shining on Mount Cook, but we got the eastern side of it, and the backlighting was just magnificent and easily one of the best pilots I've ever flown with. A third generation family in the same aerial photography business. Um, and absolute gentleman, and the way he could just sculpt a flight and find the smoothest pockets of air in just about every single tiny little valley. And I've been flying for 25 years, so I know when people really know what they're doing. And
Mm.
he was, wow, super impressive. And if anyone was going to have the skill or experience or ability to get around in those sort of winds, it was him. So, so yeah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful start to the trip, and talk about yeah, starting with a bang, so to speak. And we got up early the next day and went hunting. There's quite a few sort of beautiful lakes in and around the area. We found one we got to sort of pre-dawn, and
Is that
well,
near is it the St. John Observatory or something? It's just around the corner from there.
oh, nearby. Like I'll just
Yeah.
preface. I should have said at the beginning, like part of the show's preface is we kind of showcase where exact places are when there's sort of infrastructure, to support it. But other than that, it's like, we like to leave a little bit of mystery and a little bit of guesswork and a little bit of a little bit of touch on the nose. So this is somewhere between Tekapo and Mount Cook. So I'll say,
Yeah, I think it's I have been to this particular spot myself, and it's much more fun when you do your own reverse engineering and put in the hard yards yourself to
yeah,
find
yeah.
it.
I mean, and even we even said to our guests on this particular place, like, just don't tell anyone where it was. It's not super on the radar,
It's amazing.
and there's lots of places like it. It's just one place of many, and a little bit off the beaten track, and we're worth a look. And
Are they
that's the beauty of
willows?
going someone like Rachel, who knows a place like the back of her hand and has been going here. She actually spent half her childhood going to this particular place. Like it's really special
Wow.
to her. So I hope I've given too much away, Rachel. She's not shaking her head at me online at the moment. But I think we're just maybe fractionally past the peak of the color, but it was quite a long stretch, and I wouldn't have known any better, except that Rachel did a trip the week before, literally
Well, it looked pretty damn good to me.
back to back. So, I mean, I thought it was incredible, and Rachel was like, "Well, it was even better last week." So I was just like, "What?" So that's Aoraki. So there was this beautiful little cloud that just sort of stayed on her all day and all through the evening, actually, this one little pocket, which I really, really enjoyed. So, this
That's
is
foreground.
not rocket
That's
science with this is. It's heading out on the Hockey Valley track out that way. Um, and it is, high infrastructure and well trodden path. We went out for sunset and came back in the dark. And really, if you want to get a sunset shoot of Mount Cook, you got to do that. There's not really another place we can actually see Mount Cook because it's tucked away behind the valley here.
Yeah, it's a bit. It
Um,
must catch a lot of people off guard. It's a bit like rocking up to Coles Bay expecting to see Wine Glass Bay. You have to do a big walk to get
yeah,
there. It's the same
you
sort of
got to
thing,
put the
really.
yards in,
Yeah,
and you go
I had a
even
funny
further
story too,
again.
actually, about walking back from there at night because I was photographing Mount Cook with the boardwalk in the foreground, and my tripod started to vibrate, and I was trying to work out what was going on, and a possum had come out of nowhere and was climbing my tripod, which is unbelievable. So yeah, I had a
Oh, that's
very
great.
strange possum related incident there.
So here's that same cloud that was there way earlier on, and I decided to change my game to a long exposure shoot before sunset actually. So that's actually the sunset light to get a little bit less literal, a little bit more sort of artistic and figurative. Not figurative, but fluid, I guess would be a word. So it just had a bit more a painterly feel and a flow to it. So
That was a
I
very
even
good
thank one of
call.
my clients actually. We've been there for an hour and I hadn't really seen much light. There was some that had disappeared for like half an hour, and I was a bit conscious of us walking back late in the dark and it's cold, and only half the group was up there, so the other half was waiting for us as well. And I was just packing up to go, and I said, let's go," and she's like, "Yeah, not yet." And I was like, "Okay." And then just as I packed my gear away, I turned around and went, "Oh my goodness!" And it just lit up like a Christmas tree, and all these beautiful pink shapes and all these crazy retrospective clouds in the background. And I have to really thank one of my clients for that one. I probably would have missed it otherwise. That's Sunny. So the shout out to you, Sunny, for that. Um, Twizel is where a lot of the autumn colours are. It's not that hard to find. You literally drive through the middle of town, you'll see them, particularly as you're heading further south towards Lindy's Pass here on the side of the road. And if you just drive around in little tucked away places, there's just pockets of it everywhere. And, this is quite a
That's
sheltered
bloody
area. So
gorgeous,
even if it
mate.
is windy,
That's
it's,
so
it's quite,
nice.
what's that?
That's just such a nice picture. And
Yeah,
just
yeah. This is probably a little bit
greens and the
more
gold.
maybe
Yeah.
Ben Mays inspired or some of the American
Separation's just
landscape
perfect.
photographers. It's you had to go on
Yeah.
my tippy toes and get that little bit of separation. And
No,
extending up
that's
tripod head
just
pretty
the
high.
standout image all around.
But yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah, thanks, Logie. It's one of those ones you can spend a bit of time with, I think. Uh,
Absolutely.
it's like the two different parts of the image are singing a different song, but together they're creating a sort of a melody that works. And I think that happens when you give yourself a little bit of time. If you're rushing around just getting the hero shots, you tend to get the more obvious ones, and it's when you slow down to the quiet moments that your mind quietens and the quieter parts of nature start reaching out and presenting themselves to your awareness, I think. And the beauty of and this particular trip having a 10-day trip is we had time. It wasn't just a crazy rush everywhere.
And
And
that's amazing amount of time.
you know,
Yeah.
each space we might have, spent sort of 2 or 3 hours together. I mean, that's just a shot to give you a sense of the bigger picture of where we are, and then you can play around them, when you get bored or when you're looking for something different. It's a bit of ICM, and then even just looking up into the hills around, and there's so much atmosphere and mood, and at that time of year, and what is it, the Wai Ripper, the arms there as you're driving through are just magnificent as well. As if you got to be a little bit careful. You got to pick off, don't just go to the side of the road. There's about 2 or 3 areas where you can actually literally pull away well off the road and wander up and down. But one of the things that I made the most of is this is literally at about 150 k's an hour with 100 k's an hour with the window down across Dick's face with a 400 mm lens, and so was that. So one of the advantages, yeah, of not driving is I actually got to shoot a bit, and I would say it's probably 1 out of 10 shots is going to be good, but when they're good, they're good. And yeah, this is kind of a curious sort of shot. It's a mixture of man-made and nature, and it's quite unusual, but it also has a graphical sort of element and a little bit of otherworldliness in terms of the atmospherics. It's yeah, I just one image I particularly feel intrigued by that I got on the trip. Again, straight out the car window at high speed with a long lens. So I pushed the ISO up a bit, and even this, 100 k's an hour
Straight
out the
out the
window.
car.
Yeah. So
Wow.
get your settings right, and you've got a steady hand, and you've got a patient driver who doesn't mind you shoving a 400 mm lens straight across his face while you're
Oh,
driving.
that's incredible. And that's I think I remember that area. It's very very intriguing place.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I shot some of the Lord of the Rings scenes and things in there. It's a bit of a side trip, so you want to have a fair bit of time on your sleeve to go in there, and we decided not to on that particular day. Um, but coming down into the passes towards south of
Does it
Twice.
Linda's past? Yep.
Yeah, it's such a highlight. It's such a beautiful
Mm.
place to spend time.
Yeah.
Very dramatic landscape. The higher Mackenzie Country sort of, it's just quite unique. In some ways it feels a bit barren, but it also feels very alive at the same time. Like with that kind of high sort of tussocky sort of alpine land. It's pretty magic. Had some wickedly awesome clients.
Mm.
There's the back of Rachel on the pass there, and that's one of our favorite spots. Spent quite a lot of time there. And even in bright sort of daylight, it's very photographic. But in autumn, there's not really any bad light. Like even when it gets high, it's still at quite an angle and still has a real
Mm.
warmth and softness to it.
Looks
But
like
one
a
thing
good infrared candidate to me, this
Oh
area.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I still haven't bitten the bullet, Lucky. I've just been leaning in awe over Luke's shoulder for the last sort of 5 years, really, and what he's been creating with his systems, and particularly now that you've got it lined up with some really good cameras and very capable sort of low light cameras too. Look, it's
I'm borrowing a 10 millimeter Laowa lens now that's performing extremely well as well. So that's been really fun to play with it. 10 millimeters full frame.
we made it down. I remember when we were planning the trip, we're still like, oh, Queenstown, I want to go. Which way do you want to go? And I ended up leaning a little bit more towards Queenstown, so we spent a bit more time sort of poking around in those sort of areas and some of the lakes and areas around there, which I actually was really happy with in the end. Funny enough, this is sort of one of my favorite shots. It's sort of just, again, it just has this slightly older genre sort of paint, mid sort of 18th century painterly sort of feel about it to me. And yet that wasn't necessarily what I was looking for. It just was the way it sort of presented itself when I just sort of isolated the scene a little bit with a longer lens. And, the light we had on this trip was I'd say it was almost ridiculous. Just about everywhere you went, I was like, "You've got to be joking." About every half an hour, I was like, "You've got to be joking." It's like, what the heck? It was just somebody was just looking after us and giving us such a magic time almost every day. And we did a lot of research about the places to go to. We were very, very discerning, and as you and I are, a lot of planning involved and a lot of daily, even hourly decisions being made about where the light's going to be good and what's happening. But
No,
you could
that's
turn up to a jetty like that with not much going on, and I was like, the whole thing was just about on fire, and I was like,
that
this.
is something about that area of the South Island, isn't it? Just those little jetties that, they just hang on there and they just you just don't see that around Tassie, unfortunately, that sort of thing.
No, there's a lot of
Great
them.
to have that
There's a lot of them,
character. Like, they will get taken out in a storm, but then they'll replace it with something that's, actually functional. So it's not a bad thing, but it's not necessarily very photogenic. So yeah, it's really nice that they've
yeah,
still got
and
these.
some of I was feeling a bit, don't want to push down too hard on this jetty, but I walked walked out on the end bit. But no, it's pretty magic. It was a great little spot, not too far from Queenstown, and
I think yeah, I've been to that one too. I did a fair bit of research on my trip there ages ago.
yeah,
Um,
well, I actually got caught out. Like I went to a spot that I went to last time I was there, and I got all the clients out, went racing down there, and I was like, oh, somebody's built a 8 foot high fence, and there's no physical way to get through anymore. Across like half the length of a lake, and I was like, okay, so that was a bit embarrassing. I was like, okay, well, I'll tell you to get out. Let's get back in the car. So things change, and that was a pretty short time frame because it literally was there the year before, and it wasn't there, but it happens. But yeah, the
that's life.
mood that we got down there that time of year, and
How's
just
that warm, cool thing going on that one? Love that.
yeah, sort of. I played on that quite a lot. Warmer times there and cool as well. It's just it's such a lovely juxtaposition on the color wheel, as we all
You've
know.
gone back to your long exposures here too.
Yeah. I just
For
thought,
the
oh
audience,
well,
like, what are you sort of looking for with the exposure duration here?
I just to soften the scene a little bit, and it's
You
got
like
these
talking
lovely
30
kind of
seconds?
it's about half a minute,
Yep.
and it's relative to where the clouds are moving relative to you, the focal length that you're operating at, as well, and whether you sort of shift over to bulb mode and go even longer. But I
I'll
thought
have
this
to
probably,
admit, I asked because I wanted to know, not just for the audience too, just so you know.
yeah. Well, let's have a look. What did I actually shoot it at? Um,
If you press I,
yeah,
yeah,
30
like
seconds. Yeah.
even when
30 seconds. So, I mean, like most cameras, 30 seconds will work without you having to change any settings. And as soon as you go over, you got to shift into bulb mode and do your calculations and that kind of thing. So it's a bit of a quick and easy one to push it. And I did use filters a lot. I did use my tripod a lot. On this trip, I had a really good little travel tripod.
was the tripod working?
No, I didn't take that one because yeah,
Uh,
that leg causing me trouble. I took a slightly lighter one, um,
oh yeah,
but same
cool.
sort of series, and it worked really well. We
Nice,
didn't
nice.
get a lot of wind. There's one of my clients making the most of the bridge action there, but you can see just the mood of the place. Oh my God!
Mm.
So went to Arrowtown. Arrowtown is we actually were there for the actual autumn festival, and so there's a huge thing, a huge amount of people there, and a lot going on. But of course, you get there super early, you get everything to yourself, and I actually did a wander around in the streets, and with a 400 mil, and I shot the hillsides a lot. And I'd heard for years, at the right time of year, the hillsides can be more interesting than almost anywhere else, than the more obvious places down by the river itself. And so I actually spent quite a lot of time just isolating little pockets of that, and there's just a layering and a delicacy and a sort of sense of season and the changing of seasons, moving into winter as well, that I really enjoyed about these scenes. And
And a
there's
nice
a lot of
amount of
color
snow
down
there
there.
too on top, which is also very
Yeah,
compliment.
yeah, yeah. Just up there, like just as we arrived, literally the day before, there was a big dusting
Wow,
across all the
perfect.
major peaks. So again, like ridiculous, like well looked after because they hadn't been for a little while. And it wasn't during the trip either. So that was to set the scene. So here I actually, that's the same shot just cropped in and turned into black and white, and
Wow,
it's
that's
kind of
pretty amazing too.
yeah, just sort of looking down
Intimate
and
game
drawing in
is
what's
on
around you.
point at the moment.
What's that?
Your intimate landscape game is on point at the
Oh,
moment. Well, not that it hasn't been, but yeah, amazing.
yeah, it's ebbs and flows up, and I shot quite a lot of ground on this particular trip. But I have this little 100 to 400 lens that it only cost me $1,000. It was brand new. It's a Canon RF 100 to 400, and it's image stabilized as well. And I was going to get the 100 to 500, which is only $5,500, but twice as heavy. And I just spoke to the Canon rep, and he's like, you know what? This is actually almost got as good a focusing system. Not quite as sharp in the corners, but it's half the weight, half the size. And I literally fit it inside my jacket pocket or any pocket in my pants. It's like it's ridiculous. So a lot of the shots, I'd probably say maybe 40% of what you've seen so far has been shot with that little lens. And I also invested. Big thanks to Rachel. She leaned on her relationship with the camera store, got me a really good deal, and I bought the new 15 to 35 2.8 Canon
Oh,
RF
very.
lens, which is
That's why
rated.
you're sleeping in cars and stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah,
You
that's
had
why I'm
to
sleeping
pay
in
for
cars and
flights
stuff,
and
mate.
lenses.
So, that's a almost a $5,000 lens. But
Yeah.
it's rated as one of the best landscape lenses in the world. And I thought, well, I kind of am a full-time landscape photographer, and my
Yeah.
1635 is so beaten up.
You can
That
so easily justify it with what you do. It's not funny, but it's still very expensive.
it's
The other
yeah, it's
thing
a big chunk of
cool about
change.
that is it's really good for astro then too. So you don't
Yeah,
have to rely on if because your 14 so big and heavy that
yeah.
you're only losing a mil and yeah, it's pretty
And
cool.
Rachel just bought one, and I was like, "This is how prolific this." And she bought one secondhand, and I was like, "Well, that's almost a brand new lens. How did you manage to get a secondhand one?" This store had three secondhand ones, like, and I was
Oh,
joking. It's only been out for a few months. Like, how is this even possible? Like, that's how good their reach is and their
wow.
client base. So I was just like, "What do you mean they got another one?" I was like, "How rare would it be to even find one?" So, and I'll over time I'll be making the most of that investment, and it's the sharpest lens I think I've ever used in my entire career as a landscape lens, and most capable, and it's image stabilized as well. So the stuff I can do by hand was just crazy.
Really? 2.8
Yeah.
image stabilizer and 15 on the wide end. That's a
And
pretty
15
good.
on the way. It's brilliant, man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
wow.
get too caught up with keeping up with the Joneses, but at the same time, tools of the trade are tools of the trade, and I think my other one was actually probably 15 years old, actually, and I'd banged the end of it twice, so I can't even put a filter on the end of it anymore, and it was just limiting what I could do with it. And so I was like, oh, anyway, that's my little justification statement as we all go through as photographers. Um,
Life's too short for bad glass, Paul. You know that.
that's right. But my point is, some of my favorite images from the trip are from my little cheap and cheerful 100 to 400, and they're brilliant. So within reason, but yeah, this is on the 1535 again. Is it the sisters? What are they called? Three sisters? Um, this is a classic spot. I don't mind saying where it is 'cause it's quite commonly shot down at the bottom of Glenorchy, and beautiful place to spend time. And if you go down there early enough, you've got a little bit of time to sort of put your own stamp of how you want to photograph something or what kind of feeling or influence. And here I sort of, slowed down quite a bit to think about my composition and what I wanted to add in, what I wanted to take away, and what kind of exposure I wanted to do it with, and even moving it into monotone. So it's yeah, I quite enjoy this particular image from the trip.
Just imagine you treading around the shoreline, looking up at the branches, going, "Oh, how do I get this branch here, but
Oh
not
yeah,
have
that was a very. I
separation
was
here?" And
almost lying on the ground for this one, and always touching the water and shrinking the trouble down as low as I can go, and trying to get below actually the branches that are coming down from the top and create that little bit of separation.
yeah,
And
it's
I decided
not
to keep a
always
little
the
bit in
most
there to fill the
straightforward
space.
thing to actually get a branch in the top of the shot like that. Sometimes you have to really work for it. So
And it's always risky with a soft, squishy lake edge on a long exposure, and also branches that could be moving as well, whether they'll actually detract from a shot with movement. But
yeah, or maybe explain to us why that you decided to include the branch there.
well, I just think it almost gives a sense of not quite looking glass, but it fills the space as well. It's a soft
Mm.
hand to bring you back down to the image, so you don't just sort of wash away. If it was just a big white highlight at the top, it would be nice, but it would just kind of lift you out of the shot, and I think
Mm.
it just holds you in there nicely, and it creates a bit more of a circular flow to move around the image along those diagonals and back around, and a reason to stay and come back down. And I think it also just speaks to delicacy.
Mm.
And also a little bit to the season with the falling of leaves. It adds a touch of narrative in there as well.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
think also you got the trees are kind of reaching up, like and then this is sort of coming back down. It's like reaching back down again, sort of a
nice.
complementary type thing.
Yeah, they're almost like reaching out to each other, even though they're different kind of species. They're on the same. They're different, but they're the same, and that they're experiencing the same sort of journey and transition between seasons and
Well, then
harshness and
this tree's had it
condition.
pretty hard. I'm assuming it was an old fence line or something that's or something's happened there. It's strange.
Yeah, it's kind of unusual. That's just a phone shot, but it gives you a sense of sort of where we
Yeah.
were. There's a lovely jetty out to the left, which is great to shoot too, but it's very hard to get it without people. But beautiful place to spend time. It's a beautiful drive down the two actually, and there's a lot you can do further on down that we didn't even get to on this trip, but well worth an afternoon or evening drive. So this I literally had bungee jumpers banging into me while I was taking this photograph right behind me on the Kawarau Bridge. But I don't think people actually shoot on this bridge that much because it's usually busy and full of people, and I just sort of leant over and just basically without a tripod just leant off the bridge. Did a long exposure and just waited for the pockets of light to kind of wash through from the foreground to the background. So it helps that light kind of pulls you through the frame rather than just holding you in the foreground as it was before as it was going through. So yeah, just a simple shot, but a classic sort of moment. But yeah, and that's sort of shooting the other way with the various kind of bridges and the beautiful kind of poplars off the back and on the older roads running through. That's the road that's running now, and just yeah, that's a little bit past the bridge. So looking back up, there's also these incredible bike trails just about the whole of South Island now and North Island too is full of converted railway lines that they've turned into these biking trails. And we're not talking like an hour; we're talking like some of them are 4-day rides. And there's a real industry popping up around the whole of New Zealand, where you either get guided or you hire a bike or you organise to stay various places, or you get someone to ship your gear to the next place, and or often go electric, and it's really beautiful type of tourism, I reckon, because it gets people out of the elements, it gets people's fitness up, it gets people out that probably wouldn't otherwise do adventures like that,
And
and they
you
would
probably
be
see a side of
riding
the
past us.
place too. You're not
Well,
just going to the tourist traps. You're seeing, the real McCoy as it was.
yeah, exactly. You're out in the country, and again, just driving around all those areas, just pockets of light. That's another one at 100 k's now out the window with the 400 mil. Um, And I think my clients are probably going to be a little bit jelly of me because I had the best spot in the front to do that because I was charging up stuff and doing all the maps and planning the next thing with the weather and so we
I
had
tell you what, you're the most opportunistic photographer I've ever met in my life. So if anyone's gonna be able to pick off anything, I've driven up Mount Wellington, seeing you parked off the side, sort of hanging over the edge, trying to get a shot because the light was right. So if there's anyone that's going to bring a camera along and try and make a shot out of it, it's you. So I would, if I
Oh
was,
yeah.
I wouldn't get too worried about that.
Probably, it's probably not many people that know my style as well as you, Luke, to be able to say that.
There's so many times I'm like, how the bloody hell where did you even take that? Like, yeah, it's astounding. It's an enigma. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I shot a lot. Like, it's not always on the trips, especially with clients that you shoot a lot. But it was there are a lot of really competent photographers on our trip, and there was only five clients, so and three, there's two of us, so it was a very high ratio.
That's a really
Um,
amazing ratio. Yeah.
with three, well, with Dick as well, that makes three, so it's 3 to 5 basically, two photographers anyway. So it gave us a lot of space to have at a time to shoot as well. And what I did, and what I never thought I was going to do on this trip is, I was literally, I don't know how many hours we did driving, would have been quite a lot. But every time we jumped in the car, I was literally Wi-Fiing photos to my phone, editing them in Lightroom, throwing them on an iPad and putting them in the back to the clients within like 20 minutes for shooting. And so I gifted them this incredibly immediate feedback loop through the whole trip. So they're like, oh, I never thought of that. Oh, maybe I'll try 100 next time. Oh, long exposure. Maybe I'll try the next time. So it was a very dynamic kind of instant kind of feedback loop to kind of work on educational outcomes for the workshop, and discussions about creative opportunities and perspective, and long exposures and lens choices, and rather than just sort of doing something 2 weeks down the track after a trip where you can't really remember what was going on at the time, having that sort of incredibly immediate opportunity was really powerful, and it was only
That's
really an option by having a driver. So yeah, this is this the gold in the hills. It's almost looks like molten gold. It hasn't quite come through on my screen on how it looks a bit better on my calibrated screen, but it just looks a little bit molten to me. It surprised me just
oh, it definitely does.
a
And it's
subtle
offset
color.
really well. They've got that warm, cool thing going again.
Yeah, and I decided just to put a little hint of man's position there, just
Mm.
here we are sort of weaving our way through this sort of molten sort of golden country. But a big part of the South Island's like that, especially Mackenzie Country, that kind of tussocky alpine golden sort of color, and it's quite distinctive really. So we were originally going to fly in Fiordlands, and that was the idea, to literally drive all the way out to Milford Sounds and fly from there. And quite inspired over the years by some of Will Patino's shots and Andre Apps' shots, probably much earlier on than that, actually, for much longer, of sunsets in particular over the Southern Alps down there and through the fjords. It's like, oh, I've been dreaming of doing that forever. And just recently, there's a big transformation going on in Fiordland, and it might actually affect everyone quite a lot from now on. They're thinking of actually completely closing public access from the Homer Tunnel out.
Wow.
Yeah, a park and drive. They've had huge issues. They had a whole year trying to
Oh, they'd
rebuild.
have like a shuttle bus type operation.
Yeah, like a shuttle bus operation. The roads are. It's taken a year to rebuild the road. They had this, the huge floods and storms that just wiped out the road almost for almost a year, and I think it's quite problematic, and lots of accidents and people going off the road, and people pulling over in the wrong places to take photos, etc. But they've also pulled the licensing for most of the aerial flying companies as well at the moment, while before they settle down on what their new position's going to be. So it basically meant we couldn't really fly.
Mm.
We had one quote for $5,000 an hour. It would have cost $19,000 to fly our clients out there for an hour-long shoot. And I was like, yeah, well. But we found another company out of Queenstown that flew literally, because you look at where Queenstown is on the map, it's actually not that far from Fiordland. So
Mm.
we did maybe an hour and 20, hour and 25 loop from Queenstown over Glenorchy and out to the west, all the way out to Fiordland, and looped around below Tiano as well. It was freaking incredible. And we spoke to the pilot, and it was really touch and go. It was probably the worst and most inaccurate forecasting I'd ever experienced in a long time. Even Windy was totally off, like for almost like
Mm.
in a row. It was amazing. And even the pilots with the scratch in the head, she said it was absolute rubbish for 5 months basically. And when we got up in the morning and it was just picture perfect, and even she was like shaking her head, going, "This is the best flight I've had in 5 months." And it was so still that at 7,000 feet, it was 2 knots. It was almost like you couldn't even tell you were in a plane. It was the smoothest alpine flight I've ever experienced in my life. And this is actually Fiordland. This is Milford Sound right here.
Yeah. Mitre
Uh,
Peak, is it?
yeah, I think it's Mitre Peak there, and when nearby. And what I like about this is almost like this organic kind of reaching or connecting between the two sides. You
Yeah,
know,
symbiosis. Yeah.
yeah, almost like a symbiotic sort of.
A mycelium.
Yeah, that's a good description. Like, yeah, mycelium. It's very And that was the first time I'd seen Fiordland. I've never seen it from the air ever. So it was like, whoa, it was quite a discovery. And
Oh,
there's lots of,
that's a shot and a half. Wow.
yeah, just these gorgeous tucked away. I had
That'd
to cut
be
them.
interesting black and white too, actually.
Yeah, yeah, I've done a few in black and white. This is in particular. In fact,
How's those clouds? It's like feathers just well sitting
yeah,
on
so
there.
soft and so
Yeah,
hugging.
unusual.
And I
Because I
found
guess there
it,
was no wind, it sort of
no, no
the
one at all. So they were
yeah,
just caressing, I guess,
those
and
mirror
clinging
reflections.
and hugging the different areas and places. And often you just fly over and you wouldn't see it. Like you're up over here, there's none, and then all of a sudden you come in here and you're like, whoa. And this is the valley that leads out to so that's the landing strip for Milford Sound right there actually.
Right.
So this is actually where the planes fly in through here to land. You know, that's got to be one of the more spectacular
Jeez.
landing points for the whole of New Zealand. Probably the most spectacular in New Zealand, I'd say. I'd be hard to argue with that. But you know, 5 meters of rain down there a year and lots of weather and wind, so it's probably not. There's probably been some pretty scary landings at that place over the years. Um, yeah, funny. I actually cut out the black and whites. I had a lot of black and whites in here, but I had too many. I could have done a whole show just on the field in itself. But yeah, the layering, the backlighting, and I think almost my favorite area was actually we hit the coast itself, and it just disappeared into the soft sort of ocean mist. It was just glorious. There's a black and white for you. Um, this is just shooting through glass as well, okay, or through perspex. So we had a brand new plane. It was a Kodiak, I think, which is 10-seater, and they're really famous for Alaska and places like that, where they're in pretty extreme sort of remote areas and they handle the cold really well. And this was a brand new one. The plane was literally 5 months old, so everything was just absolutely spick through the whole thing. And again, that sort of atmospherics in Fiordland, and not only from the air but also from land, as you'll see later, are just like ridiculous. Um, this is quite a famous lake. They literally land helicopters here and have honeymoon shoots and all sorts. Sort of tucked away. It's like a hanging lake up in the mountains, not sort of halfway between Fiordland and Queenstown. Um, and
Yeah, I
yeah,
think I've seen some. Yeah, I think I know that spot. Yeah, yeah, it's a great little shot.
yeah. It's just. I think I got a really big reminder because I hadn't been to South Island for a while. I kind of just forgotten how big the freaking mountains are. That sounds so simple, but I just remember a few moments where I just literally just looked up and I was just shaking my head, going, I just don't remember them being this big. And there's a real grandeur to them, and it's sort of when you're flying over the Southern Alps, you get into that scale because the Southern Alps run almost the entire length of the South Island, for 500 kilometers. It's a huge range. And, it's a young range. So it's very sharp, unlike Tasmania, which is very rounded and worn away by literally hundreds of millions of years. This landscape's very young and very pointed and extremely glacial. So it's very edged and very scalloped out and very scooped and steep in the valleys. But again, even that sense of atmospherics, through for all this here, you come in at a ground level and it's just another level again. Like,
Mm.
we actually chose a really small boat at Milford Sound, and I highly recommend it. I don't know how many Will's done over the years. He goes out there all the time, and he just gets new shots every time because it is a similar route, just for the simple Milford Sound one in a way, but there's nothing ever the same. And this morning was no exception, and that just the atmospherics we had were just astonishing. The softness, the quietness, the sort of elegance and the power. It actually wasn't after a big rain, so we didn't have the big falls, but often that means it's quite difficult to shoot and it's all smashing into your camera and you've got to get a specific boat or try and get an area where you can actually shoot outdoors that's actually still covered. We didn't have to deal with any of that, and we chose quite a small boat. So it was lower down and a lot more sort of intimate. And you can get really close to water level and you can shoot, both up high and on front and on the back at the same time. But I was really, yeah, really moved by just the ancientness of it. The drive in there is like, you've got to be joking. It just feels like you're going into dinosaur land. I just feel old and ancient and brooding and moody and just a bit otherworldly, really. And with the mist sort of swirling around as it was, things just came in and out of focus and in and out of view all the time. literally every minute and every second you turned around. And I just ended up walking up and down around the boat non-stop the entire time because every time I went up or went back, it was already different. It was just so dynamic. So even in just, a couple of hours on a boat, it was just like, oh. And you go all the way out. And our trip, we made it all the way out to the ocean and all the way out to the entrance. And it always get that far depending on the weather. Um, but even just looking back as you get to the entrance, you're just like, oh, yeah. So this is literally at the entrance looking back. Um, and that's literally the coastline to the north of Milford Sound. So I on and out about Doubtful Sound. I was going to do that at first just for something different, but it chews up a lot more time and it takes a lot of time to get there because you've got to literally drive, then you've got to catch a boat, then you've got to catch a bus, and then you've got to get into another boat. And by the time you've done that, you haven't even got there yet. And the same on the way back in a day. So it's sort of, in terms of bang for the buck and amount of time, we decided to go the more traditional Milford Sound route, but it was an excellent call in the end. But it was such a prolific workshop, and we got so many photographs and so much good light. We actually got to the last day, and it was pouring down with rain. We're like, absolutely perfect. It's exactly what we want for the trip to go back into Fiordland and shoot all the waterfalls at full
Right.
pelt. And our poor workshop clients just looked at us and said, "Please, can we not go? We're we're absolutely exhausted. I've never taken one of photos of my freaking life. We don't need to take any more." And we looked at each other and just went, "Oh, okay." And so we actually spent the entire day doing image critiquing and going through individual images, and we went through long exposures and astrophotography and all the kind of things you don't often have time to go through in depth. And so funny enough, we finished the workshop that way rather than they're just like, we're so happy with how many photos we got. We don't need to take
Well,
another
that's
photo.
that if there's ever a statement about everyone being happy about what their experience, and that's it. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's like we don't need to take a single other photo. I mean, it was just so prolific. And you know how it is. Yeah, I mean, we had image critiquing sessions, Stuart, and that's the beauty again of a longer trip, like 10 days, and also that time of year where it's dark at like 6ish. You've got a bit of time in the evenings to reflect
You
and
don't have as much
download and look at
time.
work and look over each other's shoulder and support. And also with all the editing I was doing, I probably edited 250, maybe 300 photographs on the fly. That I fed back to the clients, within like half an hour of shooting it, which I've never actually done
A lot
before.
of these edits like that you would have done at those times then too.
Pretty much everything I've shown you up to here. Like I hadn't, because
Yeah.
this was the last day of the trip, and we left the next day. These are actually
Look at
just
that.
straight off the computer, but not everything you've seen before was all done on the fly,
That is crazy.
on the day of. Um, yeah. Oh my God, I could just spend so long there. Like I said, it just felt like it was in a. I can't remember the name of the dinosaur era, but just some sort of otherworldly kind of feel. It's people say it, but it's you don't always get to experience it, and I don't think there's many places quite like it in the world, to be honest. And it certainly stands alone quite differently to me from anywhere else in New Zealand. Um, and I'm not often lost for words, but I sort of a little bit lost with this one. Even look at the scale. I've just got that. That's a
Wow.
huge boat down
Yeah.
there. And I literally put it in there and kept it in there on purpose to give you a sense of it's just
Mm.
massive. Um, I think the top 40 meters of that water is fresh, just purely from runoff of water. That's actually the ocean, essentially. But there's such a prolific sort of fall of rain out there, upwards of, I think some years it even pushes up to 8 meters, but I think it's generally around 5 or 6, you know, which is why I often shake my head at Will, how much time Will Patino spends in the rain down there. I'm not great with the rain. Um, but
It's
again,
been pretty wet
that,
down
that's
here lately. Get back. It's
there's
getting
the
back.
boat.
You
Do you
must
see
have
the
brought it with
boat?
you or something.
Like just for scale, you see it? Look at that. That's a massive waterfall and a huge boat, and it just totally disappears in the shot. Like, I mean, it's just ridiculous. I don't even know. Yeah, a little bit lost for words, this place. And again, if you want atmosphere, oh my God. I don't think I shot anywhere like it ever in terms of that sort of level of atmospherics in particular. And so very grateful, very blessed. Incredible way to finish the workshop. And I was, I had the umbrellas ready and the rain gear ready to head back the next day and power up the waterfalls. But everyone was just so happy. We're like, no, we're happy, we're done. And we still managed to shoot some of the falls, just at their classic kind of level, not at their thumping kind of level. Um, but yeah,
Wow, that's
atmospherics, my friend.
cracking.
That's Mitre Peak. Um,
Wow.
and oh my goodness, yeah, that's with my nifty little 100 to 400.
Mm.
So the classic. And then we also, the sun cleared out and the wind dropped away and it
Oh,
was
and then you got the that happened for you as well.
I was
It's
like,
like,
this
oh
is
yeah, let's
all these
what is
photos are
a
taken within
unicorn
two
going to jump
hours.
out as well?
What's that?
Is a unicorn going to jump out of the forest?
Well, I got a magic heron to jump into one of my shots.
Uh,
Actually, there he is. There's a resident heron. They're quite rare, actually. I think they're called kohaku or kohata. I can't remember. They're quite. I don't know if they're quite endangered, but they're quite rare. There's a couple that live in the Okarito Lagoon, but they weren't there when I was up there. But he's the resident one down there, and he decided to do a post for me, which is pretty wonderful. So thanks very much. Um, but yeah, all of these short film shots are shot all on the same day. And I probably got
so this not the same day as the flight though. It was a different day.
yeah, the flight was from Queenstown,
Oh, I
and
see.
we flew from Queenstown to Fiordland and back to Queenstown
Yep.
again, and then we drove around to Fiordland for 3 days. So three
Ah,
days in the sort of Aoraki, Tekapo, Twizel region, 3 days in the Queenstown, Wanaka, Crown Range area, and 3 days down on Fiordland,
oh, that's
essentially.
a really nice way of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really, really, really nice way. I mean, I went, like I said, it's probably half a year before we settled on that, going back and forth to a few different sort of spots. But yeah, super, the most prolific workshop I think I've ever done in terms of just the content,
Well, if you're having your clients begging you to have a rest, then that says it all.
Oh, I got too many photos. We need to stop. I was like, really? Okay. So we did tuck away to some of the areas as well in the afternoon. And again, everything was just with us. Whenever we needed cloud, we got cloud. Whenever we needed sun, we got sun. Whenever we needed mist, we got mist. Whenever we needed thundering light, we got light. Whenever we needed a storm, we got a storm. It was just a bit ridiculous, really. I was actually doing a lot of this handheld. I was doing the traditional kind of tripod and filter, and I just realized, wait a minute, I only need sort of when you get close, you only need sort of a quarter of a second or something, and that's quite easily done with the image stabilization by hand these days.
Mhm. Especially
So
if you're 15 to 35 has that built in as well.
yeah, with the built-in OS as well. So I was just like, all right, let's go
Oh,
simple.
that's
That's a classic, quite accessible on this one, but still worth a bit of time. Yeah, then we back out for sunset on the same day. It doesn't look like it, but that's probably about a 2 minute exposure actually.
oh,
Maybe even 3 minutes. So I guess because it wasn't as much lateral movement I was expecting in the clouds, but again, it sort of adds an atmosphere, and you just see that's a huge waterfall just there, just to give our resting point in there. But yeah, as light was falling, I was just, oh, let's just lean into that, the atmospherics. And again, it's just about every image from that whole set could have been black and white or color, as you were pointing out. Like
mm.
it was that kind of area and that kind of shoot, I think. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, just very prehistoric kind of feeling. And I always love that little mixture of orange and blues that you get in that late light just before sunset. It's sort of adds a lot of depth to images I find. But again, either way, color black and white, it sort of works both. Quite different.
Yeah, I'd
That
probably go color on that one. Like what you're saying, that warm, cool provides more of a transition to help you
yeah,
move through the image.
even just subtle here, the warmth and the coolness is subtle, but it's there. But oh my God. And this view would change for every 2 seconds, what was the view and drifting in and out. And so it's just beautiful to sitting there spending time and just waiting for things to reveal or not reveal themselves as they chose to, and positioning yourself in a way where you've got, like, and having a really long lens as well, just let me zoom in on pockets of things.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because you've probably taken a lot of those shots from the same place. You've got these wide ones as well, so
Yeah.
you can kind of pick off the
Yeah,
details,
yeah,
or you
yeah.
can do the wide and do a bit
Like
of it. It's a good
those
lesson
images
actually.
before.
Just, don't only have that, blinkered vision of just shooting wide when you can pick off these really tight shots as well. Yeah.
So I think this is actually even a panorama actually.
Yeah.
And so that area of mountains we were talking about the black and white versus color, I was shooting about 400 mil right there. And then before was, just isolating the top of the peaks there. And so you're
Mm.
exactly right, Luke. I was isolating different areas based on the lens choices that I had. So the workshop
Whoa.
was over then, and I landed in Queenstown, and but then some of my clients were still there, and we're all so excited, and we'd had a whole day off from shooting. And they're like, well, let's go tomorrow. And so we got up early and went searching some new areas that I'd never been to either. And
That's
I don't
funny.
I don't think Rachel had permits to get up here, so that's why we didn't go there. But it's wow, I came over the hill and just went, oh, you've got to be joking. Like we didn't even know what we were going to find, and it was just ridiculous. I was like, oh my goodness.
I think I
Abs-
might know that. Like, yeah, it's a pretty awesome spot.
Yeah, well, there's a few lakes up there, but it's
Right.
yeah, it was beautiful. And after that, we looped around. I actually went and did a run on the Shotover River, and this is a classic spot. So that's actually the Shotover boat running through there.
Well,
Beautiful canyon ravine. And part of the reason I did it is that last time I did it was with my father, like literally 35 years ago. And it was
wow.
probably one of the last things I did with him. Within about 6 months or a year of him passing anyway. So yeah, there's a lot of elements to this trip that became more personal, particularly the stage of the trip where I was moving into my own time. And that's literally where the shot over boats fly through. And I'd seen this on the workshop, this valley, and we didn't have time to go through with the group. And I got on Google Earth and found a way to get down to this little pocket of area and spent probably about 3 hours down there. It was just beautiful. And yeah, no shortage of color and at that time of year. And again,
Well,
this is
the poplars are past it by then, but
yeah,
the
Poplar's just past it,
willows or
but
whatever.
I kind of
Mm,
don't mind it actually. In some ways, it
yeah,
adds a point of separation and
yeah,
delicacy to the whole scene that sort of
it's
wouldn't be
true.
there.
Yeah, softness. Yeah.
Yeah, and it sort of ties in a little bit with the coloration of the landscape above and below
Mm,
as well. And you get that kind of glacial flower, kind of, teal sort of color that comes through. And again, there's something about the poplars when they go, it's a whole different kind of aesthetic to them. And there's a delicacy to them, I think, when the leaves go as well, which is a little bit different. And this is purely isolation through light and using a longer focal length as well. I shot all of these within about 5 minutes of just one place and just isolating things out and waiting for the pockets of light to come through. Then it was a perfect time of day and be in this one particular spot. Like 5 minutes earlier, 5 minutes later, it was gone, like literally because of the angle of where the light was coming through the valley. And we found a beautiful church there, and I found out that church had actually been physically moved there 5 years before. I don't know who sort of paid for it to go there or supported it going, but it's a pretty good spot for it. And moved up the mountains for the evening. We went up sort of various sort of big mountain roads late in the evening, as high as we could get into the sort of alpine zone, as high as you could go. And so that guy, the next day I thought, all right, I literally haven't had a day to myself for 14 days. And I got a hold of a good friend of mine's son who I'd never met. And I don't know why or how he thought to be this generous, but he loaned me his $15,000 e-bike.
he must know about your equipment track record, but I know your bikes are fine.
Oh, let's see about with bikes. And I had the
Yes.
most magnificent ride. I literally rode up, I think, 1,180 meters ascent. I did
Jeez.
on that bike, and I went all the way pretty much up to there. That's
Cool.
actually the top of Ben Lomond Peak, which is the highest peak in the whole area down there. And I, didn't have to, spend $100 on a gondola ride or anything. And in fact, that only got you about a third of the way up to how high I got, actually, probably less. So it was a perfect vehicle to get up there. And I actually took my big camera and I did a lot of shooting. I haven't edited them yet, but I literally came back down, gunning it through these valleys here and in and around these gullies and back around a big loop over here. And even had a drink at the gondola on the way and just waved at all the tourists before I disappeared up high. Didn't see too many of them again. And the next day, funny enough, another one of my clients was still around, and she said, "Let's meet up." So we got up super early and went up another big mountain road and managed to get above the skyline. And it was just, oh, you know how that is, Ricky. When it happens, it's pretty damn magic. You just feel a little bit
Wow.
heavenly, or you just been given a very
Yeah.
special gift, and you just lifted away from civilization of the rest of the world, and in a way that it's very rare you get to experience this, at least in my lifetime, because I tend to live, in areas that are close to the ocean level, and it's rare that you're up high enough to be above the cloud zone. It does happen now and again on Mount Wellington, but it's really hard to know, and it's not that common when it does. But it was, oh goodness me, what a start to the day. So here's me thinking, oh, have I almost taken too many photographs? And it just kept giving and giving.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things, because it doesn't always go your way, and so it's like that, make hay while the sun shines sort of thing. You, if
It's,
it's there, you
it's
gotta
that
you gotta take it. It's not always like
I
that.
just got smashed by hay for a month basically. There wasn't any I don't think I pulled my raincoat out this entire trip actually for 2 months. And there's probably weather around, but wherever I was, I just missed it. But yeah, beautiful atmospherics and just gorgeous otherworldly morning. And then we actually spent the day going up another sort of beautiful isolated valley. And we stayed out there till sunset and did a beautiful walk up here. I remember walking up this valley when I think it was about 22, and we walked all the gear because there's a hut up there. We walked all the gear of this crazy Irish band up there, and we had an Irish band bush ball tucked away in the mountains, and an old hut. And so I was kind of going down memory lane a little bit with that one of this beautiful valley, but that was pretty magic. And yeah, thanks, Kerry, for getting me out there. Uh, Popped over to Wanaka, and spent a night there, and went down to the good old tree. She's pretty busy during the day down there, a little bit less so at night, but people sort of came and went. But funny enough, the only position for where the Milky Way was relative to here was nowhere near a tree. But when I looked up, I was like, oh, it actually kind of works. So there she is. I sort of probably shooting about 250 mil there, maybe. Not sure. Oh no, sorry, I take that back. I shot there with an 85. Yeah, 85 1.4 to get the reflection in. I need to be a little bit wider, and I think I shot it at
Just a crying
1.4.
shame that that lower branch has been attacked like it has. Like it's just
Yeah,
once you know what it used to look like, every time you see it now, it's just not the same, is it? It's just
these are all shot within maybe 2 minutes of each other, but you can this is just the idea of the lighting. So they actually lit that with a head torch. That's a black and white version of the same shot, and then that's unlit. So that's
wow.
using the light that's actually there. And it's actually quite a bit of light that comes from the city that gives it that orange sort of glow. Because off to the right is Wanaka itself. Um, and I shot it, yeah, 85 at 1.4, just for that soft kind of feel. And to give you a sense of what's going on there, that's there's the tree, there's a position, because it changes the water level and how close you can actually get to it. You actually couldn't get very close to it with the amount of water in the lake at this time, but that gives you the perspective. And there's still
But
quite a
it's
lot of
nice.
colors around
I've
there.
been there before when it's been low, and then you don't really get a reflection. So it's kind of I want to, that's actually I
Ah,
would have dreamt of having conditions like that, especially with the autumn colors in the trees as well. It
yeah.
looks like a pretty good setup. Yeah.
Well, I found it was quite tricky to incorporate the autumn colors because, I mean, unless you're standing out in the water looking that way, it's hard
Well, that's
to.
probably where it's a downside of having a high water level. Yeah, there you
Yeah, yeah,
go.
I couldn't find a way to connect the two, and also it was the wrong time of year to tie in the Milky Way to any
Mm.
compositions. But I made the most of being there. Like it's any trip, you're not always going to be in the perfect place at the perfect time for one single shot, and you
It's
just
just
make the
that
most of
that's
what's
probably
there.
the only one then by the sounds.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, and then I thought, right, I'm heading up. Where am I going to go? I thought about, oh, am I going to go to Stewart Island? Am I going to go to the Catlins? Am I going to go to up to Kaikoura? Am I going to get to Abel
Geez,
Tasman,
isn't it
Northwest?
amazing to have all of those potential locations and
Well,
like
I had
that's
a,
such
I
a
just got to
hard
won
job.
my, just got to won my ticket, and I was just like, and I spent the whole of the workshop thinking about it and reflecting on where I wanted to go and talking to people and talking to Rachel and eventually after I had a few days in Queenstown with the clients sort of in mountain biking, having a time to myself, all right, I'm going west. And as soon as I realized I was going west, I was like, ooh, I've been talking to my good friend Scotty McCook for like 8 years about an incredible shoot he did with Jordan
Jordan?
Jordan
Yeah.
Cantello and Maddie. Who was it? It was the three of them together, and they had a hell of a pilot. And I reached out to Scotty and said, "Look, I'm heading up that way, mate." And he said all he had is his Facebook um, name for him. And I reached out, and of course, I got no response. I was like, "Oh man, I got no business name, no last name, no sort of phone number." I was like, "Is this going to work? Is
From
this going
eight
to work?"
years ago as well.
Yeah, from a long time ago, might not still be there anymore. Who knows? And eventually, actually, I was in the middle of kayaking in the Okarita Lagoon on this 4 hour solo hike thing, and the phone tinkled. I didn't think I had reception, and it was him. And I was like, right, I've got a spot in 3 hours, and I was like, oh shit, I'm like an hour and a half paddle and an hour's drive away. I was just like, oh, I better get going. So I raced back, and Scotty had so much faith in this pilot, Michael Glenn's his name. They said, you know what? The best thing you can do is just say, just take me wherever the hell you reckon you think I should go. And when you're paying thousands of dollars, that's not something I'd often have the faith to do, especially with a complete stranger. But Scotty convinced me that the times they tried to plan their trip were never anywhere near as good as when they just let him lead the way, because he's one of the best pilots in the area and one of the most experienced. And I just gave him the lean and said, let me go. And it was one of those special rare opportunities. I usually have a joke about the only time I fly in a chopper is when someone else is paying for it because it ain't cheap flying in choppers. I remember getting in quotes in Iceland. It was $4,000 an hour. And it's like,
You wouldn't really have a different. There wouldn't be many planes operating off the west coast.
oh, well, this is Franz Josef kind of Fox area. So there actually is
Okay.
not many planes, sort of choppers. Sorry, you good point. Yeah, there's not many planes, but there's a lot
Yeah.
of choppers. A few
Yeah.
more planes across on the other side, on the Aoraki and Tekapo sort of side. A real mixture of choppers and planes, whereas the West Coast is very, at least in the Fox and Franz in particular, is very, very helicopter dependent. And they are the right vehicles for that. But he had a particular chopper that had really high turbines, was really powerful, and was really quick to be able to get up high. And some of them can't operate very well when it gets really high or it gets too cold. And then he had a twin turbine, so it was, it's more expensive to get up there, but it's fast
Yeah, I
and
guess that's the thing too, because you're pretty much on the coast there, right? So you're
yeah.
you're not far off sea level when you're taking off, and you've got a
Yeah,
hell
so
of
it's a
a climb
huge
to get
climb,
up.
and you're going up
Yeah.
to, 3,000 meters almost.
Yeah.
Maybe high, like 10, 12, 11, 12,000 feet, like 11-ish, 11 and a half. So and then you're trying to do that climb in like 10 minutes. So it's
Eesh.
a bit of power helps. And so I decided to gun it up the Fox and really focus on that and where it met up with the sort of Tasman
Oh, how's
Valley.
that weather? Geez, so clear.
And, it was so lucky with the weather window. Like you said, like even the other pilot in Queenstown said it's been crap for like 5 months. So, and they literally like I remember Scotty saying, it was pouring down with rain and they were like, oh my God, we're screwed. And the pilot's like, no, it's going to be fine. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, trust me, trust me. He's like, what? Are you sure? When you're spending that kind of money, it's hard to go, no worries. And he just shot up through the clouds, blasted through the rain, and above it was absolute perfection.
Oh,
And he just knew the levels of cloud to within like 100 meters of what it's going to be doing that well. That he, that kind of local knowledge is just priceless. Um, So yeah, shooting out of it was so I actually switched from my 24-105 to the 15 to 35 looking. I did
oh,
85% of the shoot on the wide angle. And I was on a harness and I was literally hanging out the plane. I remember Scotty saying to me when he was up there last time it was minus 20 degrees and he literally couldn't feel his hands. So I got over the top, rugging up, and I even had a balaclava to cover my face, just have the eyes popping out because I didn't want to because I find when you get that cold, you lose your confidence and creativity, and you just go into survival mode, and it's really hard to think in more abstract ways. You just get stuck in a more literal thing because you just sort of like go, "Roar," and I didn't want to
yeah.
go in that space. So I
Okay.
probably overdid it in fact, the balaclava kind of limited my hearing of the pilot, which wasn't so good, um, but he knew what he's doing so well that I just basically went along for the ride, and that's a rare experience for me to have somebody that competent, and he's a super keen photographer himself. So he knows with the good lighters. In fact, he pointed out things that I didn't even notice. Yeah, this is
And I'm
quietly
assuming
my.
he's flown for a lot of other photographers too, so he'd know what you're after
Oh,
as well.
it's not a big part of what he does. In fact, he
Okay.
works with he flies a lot with remote area hunters. In fact, we got on so well. He invited me on another trip the next day where he flew me out to pick up hunters, and we
Oh,
just had that kind of connection where we just absolutely hit it off. And he was frothing on what I was doing, and we went out to dinner together afterwards. I did a photo shoot with him and his wife. I gifted him a print to give to his grandma, who's an artist. And then he's like, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And he's like, "Oh, come with me. We'll fly up these remote valleys and go meet these hunters." And so it was just a magic connection I had with him. And funny enough, this is one of my favorite photos of the trip. It's a very unusual, almost like Lego-like, very highly textural, and also, what's that
it's
thing
an
where you get?
abstract, yeah, and like it's just
Yeah, it's real shows, but it's so visceral, and sort of otherworldly and textural and
like
intimate,
another planet. Yeah.
but powerful. And yeah, it's like a landscape that few people get to experience, including myself. It's only really the really high-end alpinists that would get up into areas like this, and to have it feel so sort of accessible and close is a really unusual experience, even for me, and all the aerial flying I've done. But
I mean, it's you can't conceive of navigating through that on foot, can you?
oh
So
no, physically
yeah,
you'd be risking your life, and
yeah.
getting yourself in all sorts of trouble. So yeah. Good luck getting much progress through that sort of country. So it's it's very rare to get that close. And I remember Scotty had got some really incredible shots where he was really close and low to the snow itself, where it felt like you were almost in it. And I mentioned that to the pilot, and he got him pretty close to a lot. So that's one of the valleys we sort of flew up there. So yeah, just almost like this. It's almost like a ladder or a stepping stone, just that sense of a river flowing down but frozen in time is essentially what glaciers are. They operate just like rivers. They have the shaping and power to scour out valleys, same as rivers do, and they just move at a slower pace of time. And I love this little finishing point on the top right there.
Oh
The
yeah,
runoff from the glacier sort of going around the corner there,
little
and
Easter egg out there.
little hints of little waterfalls tucked away in various places. And
Beautiful beams coming in too.
yeah, we shot right into the beams. I ended up actually switching at one stage to I shot a lot of F-22 when I was getting the sun straight on the shot.
Yeah.
And I've never shot aerial photography at F-22 because I'm always trying to keep the shutter speed up so high. But when you're shooting into the sun and you got a 2.8 lens and you got all that image stabilization, I was like, stuff it. Um, and geez, it looked beautiful having the sun stars in there rather than just a glob of sort of color sort of in the way. So that was a bit unexpected, but it also means, front to back, they're pretty sharp. I ended up pushing the ISO up to 1600, which I don't normally do. But because it's such a rich textural substrate anyway, that kind of ISO noise disappears into the grain of the actual structure of the rocks anyway. So I really, even when I zoomed, like even there, like
Whoa.
that grain in there, just you
Oh
couldn't even
my
tell
God.
that's 1600. But um, oh my God, up the top there was just like, you've got to be joking. I was just I was just frothing. I was just like, how good is this? It was just, yeah, otherworldly. I just wanted to sort of jump out and stand on one of those, you almost could.
Yeah, I know. I
Once we
mean, it
were,
must be, it looked like you're pretty close there. Yeah.
yeah, pretty close. Not too
Wow.
close, but close enough to, but also I'm shooting at like 15 mil wide,
Yeah.
which I never normally do. Certainly in a Cessna, I'd almost never shoot that wide, except maybe the back of a 207
You
with.
wouldn't be able to get that low in a Cessna either, though, would you?
No, not even think
Yeah.
about it. So it's the right vehicle for the job, and just look at these layerings. I
Ah,
don't even like it, Luke. I'm just like, what the heck?
that's
And
just
it's just,
outstanding, isn't it?
yeah, just pockets
That
of it
is an
there.
image and a
Just
half.
you'd almost just want to
Oh
run
my
across them,
God.
jumping from gap to gap to gap, and there's some pretty
That is
big
incredible.
gaps between them. Yeah, and then again, that's the F-22 doing its magic. Rather than just a big glob, it's actually, a big feature of the shot now.
Beautiful sunstar in that lens too. Look at that.
Yeah, I found that out. I had heard about it, but I found that out on that first morning where I shot the autumn sort of lake shots. But then I
Black
was,
and white can also help with like shooting into the sun. You can get awful color sort of problems as well. So it's
yeah,
always easier
yeah,
to go black and white as well.
yeah, I found this whole series works beautifully in both, almost without fail, which is unusual to get an hour and a half long shoot or whatever, where just about everything you're shooting sort of seems to work and monotone as well as color. It's again, it's very subtle,
Sounds
but
like a theme of your whole trip, really. It's like, oh yeah, just everything seemed to work. But
everything was
I
ridiculous.
love that warm, cool thing going on there too. Yeah, there you go
Yeah,
again.
there's literally just maybe 2 minutes of the day where you get this. It's just as the last of the sun's falling, and it's soft, and it gives you that pastel kind of coloring and warmth, and the ice with the patches of blue was sort of highlighting the blue separations. I'm going to lean back in, and I mean, obviously, I've probably shot. I actually haven't counted. I reckon it'd be a good 24,000 shots, I reckon, on this trip.
This
And
particular shoot or on the whole trip?
I think actually it might be more than that on both because it's back to back. It's almost a month of shooting just about every single day. There's another one I thought that suited square. Shooting in the sun's not that easy, as you well know, but I kind of managed to get away with it with color here without too much sort of crazy flare sort of
And a
happening.
waterfall on the left.
Yeah, that was it.
And a
Like Michael's
waterfall.
one who spotted that out of the corner of his eye. I'd kind of missed it, and then I didn't realize. And then I just actually realized, well, it's a pretty special feature, getting a backlit kind of golden sort of waterfall just as a little kind of Easter egg in your shot, you know.
It'd be interesting what the full width would look like in that one too, rather than it being a square crop and having a bit more
Yeah, I shot most of it vertical. There'll be a couple
oh,
further
I
on
see it.
to give you a sense of the vertical because I just wanted that sweeping flow out there. Um, this is just a tongue of one of the other glaciers sort of sweeping down one of the other valleys, and
Hmm.
then you know you've got to have a clean lens, or you're going to get all these bits and bobs sort of coming through. And it was fairly new, so that kind of helped.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm going
that's
to lean back into
definitely
these
helpful.
crevasses. Oh, so amazing! Like you just never get access to a shot like that on foot, and rare that, and you wouldn't be able to get a shot like that on a fixed wing either. It was
I'm
very
so
fun.
glad you went with the wide just to provide the context and bring the mountains into the shot too. You can always crop in too if you've got it. Oh, bloody hell.
Well, I thought I was going to swap back, and then I just did it. There was certainly some shots I'm like, oh, I'd love to zoom in long, but you know, when you're paying $1 an hour and the light's going down that fast, you don't really. And I only had the one camera actually up there that I was shooting with. I was just shooting with the R5. I was just so happy with it. But
I mean, it's just the perfect conditions. Oh, and then you get the bloody clouds there too.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
man, we had everything, man. It was it was just like I said, this whole trip was just the gift that kept on giving. Where I was saying, you got to be
There's that
kidding me.
little
Every
cloud
day,
just
there's not a
great.
single day went past where I wasn't saying some of the day, like you've got to be kidding me. It was just that kind of trip. So somebody was just I don't know, I felt like it wasn't all on a silver platter, but you know, I had to work for it.
Oh
But
yeah.
when I finally got there, you know, and the stars seemed to align and
Oh,
just
how's that? Almost
yeah,
looks like one of your long exposures with that lenticular up there.
yeah, isn't it interesting? It almost looks like it's moving, isn't it? Like it's flying from left to right across the screen. It's quite unusual. Um,
That's just
Difficult to shoot down the valleys there straight into the sun, but I gave it a good crack.
but even the flaring's actually pretty attractive there. Obviously you could take it out too if you needed to.
Yeah, it's not overbearing. You have to teach me how to do that. Look, you're not much at
Oh, but actually now in
anything, mate.
Lightroom with the remove tools and stuff in Lightroom, it's a
Oh,
absolute
geez,
breeze now.
I will say I got a hell of a fright, mate. I got back from this trip and I saw, there's a new upgraded Lightroom,
Oh, I
and
did the catalog.
they're going on and on about the new cloning you're just talking about in particular. And so I went
Very
in and did
removes.
it, and I opened my Lightroom up again. Uh, where did 587,000 previews go? Where did the last year of my work go? It's not even registering the hard drive I've been using for the last year is even existing in the catalog, and I got a hell of a fright, mate. And it was
Oh, have you backed it up?
straight up the upgrading. Well, I was on the road.
Oh shit.
I was in New Zealand, so it was straight up to upgrading. Just doing the regular update on Lightroom to the new one, and it was one of those ones where it asks you to re-upgrade your entire catalog,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
only happens, every probably half a year or so, a year maybe.
It happens way too frequently for my liking,
And
actually.
I was
But
like, oh my God, that was, that was almost a decade of my life just wiped out in front of me. And I was like, fucking hell. So, yeah, and I didn't have any internet where I was. And I was just like, oh God. And I eventually got a hold of Adobe and spent like 2 hours with a technician, kind of just rewinding it all the way back from scratch and uninstalling it and reinstalling it and going back to the older version. So I'm not going to touch that new version for a while. I can tell you that.
yeah, that's interesting. It's done that. I have had problems one other time where I've had a corrupted catalog, but yeah, when they get very big, the catalogs I now have to split my catalogs into years just to make them a bit more manageable. That might be something you might need to look at maybe.
Yeah, checking out on it. I love having it all in one catalog because it makes it so accessible and
I,
functional.
I know it's not that I'm saying I'm happy about it, but I've got 500,000 or something images, and it's just too much for one catalog. So
Down the valley again. I keep ticking through because I'm only
yeah,
I've only
yeah.
just started my West Coast trip. So
No,
a little bit
we
more
don't want you
scale
to have
though.
to rush, and I've got to get some sleep as well. I was on ABC radio this morning doing an interview at 5:40 in the morning, so I've had
Uh,
a
my
long
la-
day, Paul.
my last interview was 5:40 in the morning as well.
Yeah, that was good fun though.
Yeah, what a privilege though to get up in a view like that. And you're literally flying down that valley afterwards. It's just oh my God.
That
So
is
classic.
that
It was a
is
big day. I
I don't know
shot.
how many incredible shots there are there, but I'm blown away. And even that, just that last one there as well. Like
just as a
couldn't
place, it's like, oh, like I mean, yeah, I would have
notice
taken a
even just
couple of
the
thousand shots
perfection of
on that.
that flaring coming in as this the spikes, just in that backlighting that waterfall that's there. It's just yeah, bloody gorgeous.
Yeah, lucky, man, lucky. But a lot of years of money and a lot of money. I'll still be paying off that flight for a while, I can tell you. But to
Well,
the
you just have to
classic Lake
sell more
Mountain,
prints
I
or
did
something.
I did more. I went back there and I won't go into the story, but it was quite funny how I got there. And lucky enough, one of the particular viewpoints was reasonably lined up for Astro, so I thought, oh, I've got to do that. Um,
Is that around Matheson area?
yeah, it's around the Meston area, yeah, so not far from Fox. I shot it that morning. I got there at 5 in the morning, an hour before light, and just as it was getting good, like 200 geese flew in and landed right on the water and just stuffed all the
Wow.
reflections. And they just didn't leave. And I was literally asking scientists that I'd met, do you know if the geese are going to be there at night? So if I go back tonight, which is quite a bit of a drive and a bit of a, half-hour walk each way just in the dark, like, are they going to stuff it all? And they were like, I actually said they will be there somewhere, but they might be tucked away in the corners a bit. Yeah, and then like I'd heard about I'd seen some of Lucas photos from the night before of a huge aurora, and I'd heard all the guffaw about what was happening, and this was really nice about people like Luke and Andrew and Nick and Benjamin Albridge and Andrew Phipps, and we're all such big frothers on it. And Luke in particular is the one who's got me into it over the last 4 or 5 years, and we were all talking about it, where we were going to go, and I saw my cloud forecast where I was, and I was like, oh God. And I spent the whole day researching about 7 different locations that would be probably epic to world class to shoot, specifically with that level of aurora you wouldn't get any other time. And I had them all lined up, and I had it timed, and I had it all GPS, and then I just was just fingers crossed on the cloud, and like, nah, it just totally screwed me. And I was either going to have to drive like 4.5 hours east to the Christchurch side, or all the way through the Alps Path, and totally stuff the rest of my trip just to get the aurora, or because there's a bit of a clear area on the Christchurch side, or go up this little pocket in the far northwest near a tiny little town called Karamea, which is the last town on the northwest coast of the South Island. And it looked like there was cloud nearby, but there was going to be an hour or maybe 2 hours if you're lucky of a pocket. And I decided to do that. Um, and it was a beautiful little town, just sort of tucked away. I got to, but and I was, and these guys, I didn't think I was going to get anything. And then I shot this within the first. That's the first shot I took, I think. No, that was probably the first shot I took. And then right above my head, I just went, "What? What the heck is that?" I was like, fingers of God coming down at me, and then I was like shooting north, and then I was shooting east, and I was shooting
Yeah.
west. I didn't even take a south shot for the first half an hour, and it
Well, it
was,
was actually
oh
not great
God.
shooting south sometimes because, if you're actually in Antarctica where it's normally good, you probably wouldn't have had an aurora because it was so big that the aurora oval is actually over Tasmania or New Zealand, like you were seeing it. So you didn't have to shoot south at all, which is the ironic thing.
And so I was trying to, as you always do, you're trying to tie in the landscape a little bit to the compositions. And
I could see your cloud bank there. Yeah.
yeah, there it is. I was like, quick, try and get something, and sort of while I can. And of course, I'd never been there. I arrived in the dark, so I didn't really know it was there. And
It would have
this was,
that
this
darkness would
was,
have gone away pretty quick with all that auroral light. Look at that.
oh
Gee.
yeah, yeah. It looks like a nice, easy place to shoot, but it wasn't. This was basically every 30 seconds. This was about almost waist deep in water from a wave
Oh,
coming through. And it sucked back out, and I'd race back out, and I set up my tripod, do my 15-second exposure where it was, and usually before I finish a shot, the waves come back in and got me always to the waist, and I did it like about 15 times to get these shots. So it looks very calm and peaceful, but it was the only place I could find to get a reflection. So I was thinking, oh, it's low tide, I'll go down to the beach, but it turned out the beach was just all rocks. Um, and as you can see on the left there, and and I actually did at the last minute chuck my 14mm 1.8 in, so I actually shot him on this. Because at the time I didn't have that 16-5 2.8. I didn't think I had anything.
uh,
And I sucked it up and brought it on the whole trip. It's the only time I used it on the whole trip. But geez, it was nice to have. But as you well know, that just, covered about a third of what was happening in the sky,
oh yeah,
even
it
at
was
14
actually
mil.
hard to. It wasn't an. I wouldn't say it was enjoyable to photograph because it was just you just didn't
It
know
was
what to do.
challenging. Yeah, it
It
was so
was
overwhelming. It was just ridiculous. Like, and even to the naked eye, I was like, oh my God, I'm on Mars. Like, even the ground's red. Like I was,
Yeah, white
what?
balance. I did a Aurora post-processing workshop online and spent a huge amount of time talking about white balance because something like this, you've got to really consider about where you want to be placing the white balance because it's just going to cast that. And it's not bad. Like there is a color cast from that red light. That's because it's red, but then you can also adjust that and work out what looks more natural or suits your taste. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's tricky, and I mean I just did these on my phone in the car, but the same night actually, just because it was all gone by about 10:15 with the clouds. I couldn't shoot anymore, so I missed that really big coronal event that you guys got straight up. I that was totally gone for me, but I was just so lucky to get any of it because I was so upset that day. Like it's going to be one of the biggest Aurora events in the history of my life, and I'm going to miss it. Um, but I was also dreaming of getting up to this part of the coast. So my last day up the northwest coast, I head up to Kanamia and the Oparata Arches, um, which Luke had got me pretty excited about going up to see. I didn't realize how far it was. It's a pretty long way and a pretty long drive to get in there. And
I couldn't remember that bit. Sorry, Paul, if I put up the garden path.
yeah, oh no, no, it's part of the magic of going somewhere special, but it was quite a commitment to get up there that far north, and so it meant that by the time I got up there, it was pretty late, and by the time I got to the second arch, it was actually dark. Um, but there was no one there but me, so I had the entire sort of place to myself, and it's very otherworldly and very ethereal and very visceral, very beautiful, um, and yeah, I did some
It's definitely
panoramic.
worth the effort, in my opinion. Like that, it's just a very
Real
yeah.
unusual cast sort of limestone area. That's a little bit more of a literal shot. The other ones are a little more interpretive, like where I was just shooting it and along through this area here. But I spent so long here that I just looked at the clock and went, "Oh my God, I'm not going to get the next one till it's actually
Oh,
dark."
that's probably my favorite too. The other one.
Well,
Yeah,
this is that one's more understated, I felt, but
yeah,
very elegant. And then this
yeah.
one's just colossal and huge. And guess what I figured out? Guess what direction that is?
I was gonna say,
South.
like that would have been
That
a
is
cool
straight
spot to.
south. And I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh my God, imagine if I was there the night before."
I was thinking that actually. Like it wouldn't normally work as a shot, but if that just happened to be clear there, that would be a pretty all-time sort of shot, especially if you got a selfie in there or something.
Oh yeah, which you totally could have because there's so much room in this cave. This goes on for about 300 meters behind me and opens out to another area. This arch is massive, and of course nobody there. So actually, this is all just light. This was dark. I was just light painting it, which was pretty fun and probably a little bit different in itself in terms of getting a different sort of shot. But
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a bit of a mind trip in its own right, as it looks like, is this shot upside down or like there's the trees coming in from all angles. It's pretty interesting,
yeah, and good
isn't
point
it?
in the top as well, like almost hanging into your shot. Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
could definitely work on something there to really like twist people's minds, I think.
Yeah, maybe cut away the bottom and just have the upper section, maybe just almost like
Mm.
it looks like one of those 360-degree photographs or something.
I reckon did the same thing though, got in there pretty late as well. It's a bit more involved than you think, but yeah, worth the effort.
So on a side note, my good mate Jason said, "You've got to meet Bazza." I was like, "Who's Bazza?" "Oh, he runs the Country Western Museum up there." And it was just, he was the raddest guy. And I went in there and I just thought, "Oh my God, what an absolute legend. Can I please photograph you?" And he's like, "Yeah, go for it, brother." And he's got one of the most incredible collections of country and Western music on earth. Um, like tens and tens and tens of thousands. And just about every single one of these is hand signed by the actual artist. Half of them aren't even alive anymore. A lot of it's even like just a pure New Zealand sections. He had Shania Twain come in there, who'd even heard about it, and she said, "I've never seen a collection like this anywhere in the world." So Barry's an absolute legend of a fellow. We had a great lunch together. That's just one half of one room of one of his shops,
Pretty cool.
and we did a swap. He gave me 2,300 country and western songs for an hour long photo shoot. So that was a pretty so I got a pretty incredible collection of country and western music. And I didn't care what I got. I just wanted to do something nice for him. And to be fair, he just been through a lot personally, and there was a few challenges going on. And we got on so well. I was like, oh, and actually, some photographer had gone through about I think 2 years before, and it had gone through all these four businesses up around the area. And this is a tiny little town called Granite, I think it is, or Hector on the northwest coast. Not many people at all. And he took all these people's money and ripped them all off and didn't give them any of the photos.
Oh,
And I kind of like, I just said to Barry, you know what, mate? This is my opportunity to make that up to you. I'm just going to do it for you, brother. And don't even worry about it. And then he said, no, no, I got to give you something. And I said, well, how about some music? He said, sure. So while I was shooting, he got a whole collection together for me. So a bit of a one-off,
Did that end up being the soundtrack of the rest of the trip? Bit of
he
Slick
was, he
Dusty or
was,
something?
he was because I couldn't play any music, and he put it on a USB, and I just happened to have a little USB slot on the car. So the whole rest of the trip was just, the, you know,
What an
Johnny
actually,
Cash and Elvis Presley
it's
and
actually kind of tied so
Slim
nicely with
Dusty,
the
and
road trip if you think about it, like
it was
as a
great.
gesture and everything. It's really cool.
So the very last thing I wanted to do was go through Arthur's Pass and to see Castle Hill. Castle Hill is a very unusual, very, very special area. Uh, it's sort of about 45 minutes west of Christchurch. So, and I was going back to Christchurch. So this was the end of my trip. And I had a really good friend, Craig Robertson, who's an amazing photographer in New Zealand. And he's such a generous guy. I remember staying in his caravan one year when I was judging the NZOPP out in this driveway and loaning all his kids' clothes and shoes to go to the awards dinner and everything else. He's been so good to me. And I said, look, I'm in town, mate. Do you want to do a shoot together? And he said, yeah, yeah. And I said, oh, wait a minute. Have you got the camper? He's like, yeah. But so why don't you drive it out? We'll spend a night at Castle Hill together. So he did. And it was -3 when we got up and beautiful mist. And there was those little kind of lights on the road of showing black ice. So we had to be pretty careful. But we stayed within like 15 minutes of Castle Hill and we got there. This is well before sunrise. It didn't look like it, but it's quite a long exposure actually. So it has a really, really subtle kind of light aspect to it. But you can get a sense of the landscape. But these kind of rock features head way up to the left and way out to the right and tucked in behind. And there's this working kind of farms out the back of it as well. But it's a very sacred area. If you look on my Facebook page, I did quite a big write up about it in terms of the Māori history. Even the Dalai Lama has called it one of the most incredible energy centers in the universe. I don't know where he got that from, but that's literally the words he used to describe this place. Um, and the medicine men, the tohunas and the Maori people actually trained up there apparently. And if you believe in the history before the Maori people, the Waitaha people, this was almost like Stonehenge for them, and that they used the rocks as astrological guides and all sorts of things. But it's just like nowhere I've ever been. It's really eclectic, unusual, very deeply sculpted, um, very, very ethereal, very spiritual. And unbeknownst to me, I found this beautiful stone spiral labyrinth in the back there that somebody had built. And Craig actually said to me that it actually is often underwater where it was actually. I don't know how long it's been there, but obviously, people have see it in great reverence spiritually from all sorts of different cultures and backgrounds. But outside of that, it's just a phenomenal place to photograph. Whether it's almost in any light, I'd argue you could go up there and get some amazing shots. It's
Yeah, I did a really awesome shoot there actually, at night, under
Oh,
the
I didn't realize
moonlight.
you'd been looking. Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I just yeah, did it was unfortunately not a good time for stars because it was a pretty bright moon, but just being in there at night and having the place lit up in different light like that was just, yeah, it's definitely a special place and great spot to spend a bit of time and finding your own little shots. And I still have to has it's hard to say, but I haven't actually edited any of it yet. I need to really go back and visit it or put quite a few hours into it. And I think I remember falling asleep on a rock out there at one point because I was pushing myself pretty hard to get some shots. So yeah,
Well,
it's
speaking of,
definitely worth a stop for sure.
it's a big rock climbing area. If you're going to go, I'd say go really
Bouldering,
early,
yeah.
and get there before the people get there and get the early light. I mean, you can shoot at sunset or sunrise. It's quite sacred. Like Rachel can't actually get a dock permit to shoot there on a commercial trip. I was just there on a personal trip, and here's the labyrinth here that I found
Oh
sort of
wow,
up
how's
back,
that?
and it was quite big actually. I walked it several times as a meditation. I've got a friend here. Actually, it was my friend. Remember how I said I borrowed the mountain bike off a friend's son? Well, my actual friend, he actually builds labyrinths for a living all around the world and uses them in workshops and meditations and communities, that kind of thing. You can't quite tell here, but this is actually frost.
Oh,
and
right.
that
Wow.
that is moving along and melting the frost as it goes along. So it's quite a nice kind of narrative to the shape and
Oh,
the way the ice is working. See how the ice is just sort of highlighted the frost.
wow.
So really, really special, beautiful way to finish a trip, really. Um, and yeah, it sort of reminded me a little bit of not there's some beautiful rocks in America that near Death Valley, well, not Albuquerque, Alba. Anyway, it's got echoes to some other places in the world, but works beautifully, color and black and white both. I found this for
Mm.
Craig
Well,
because
I like the black and white there.
yeah, he decided to pop in there. So that's the last photograph I took on that trip with my good friend Craig. And 9:27. I was just gonna. There's a couple of small videos I might throw at you just
Yeah,
to
please.
round out the end of the trip. I actually did a exploratory jet boat trip with a in a very remote river on the southwest corner of the west coast. And with an old kind of family business and been running for about 30 years. And my father was a boat builder and he used to do a lot of the exploratory trips with Phil Hamilton. He invented the jet boat in the 50s and 60s. So it was a bit of a homage to my father and
Mm.
reminding of some of the trips that I did with him when I was really young. And yeah, so it's a bit of a treat to myself as well. You know, I kind of treated the that whole West Coast trip as a bit of a scout for future trips as well.
Geez,
Um,
they must know the rivers pretty well going those sort of speeds around those bends and things.
it's really volatile. Unfortunately, I can't talk very well while I'm playing it because of the noise. But this is right at the top end as far as you can get on this particular river. Um, but seasonally, like after you can't get up there at all, and you'll often get huge rainfalls. You know, especially during the summer months like January, where it's almost a whiteout. There's also areas down the bottom of these beautiful wetlands, and we actually went right up to the coast and went out to the sand pits. We went past all these special areas where they're rehabilitating kiwis. Um,
Oh, really?
this is just an example of a beautiful spot on the west coast on the beaches there. We are moving into the more of that kahikatea sort of forest sort of area.
Those reflections. Holy
Um,
crap.
just yeah, beautiful. Just lots of little. There's so many little tucked away little spots on the west coast where you can just sort of tuck yourself away or get a beautiful um, sunset experience in particular. Obviously, it's the west coast, so it really suits me. I'm more of a sunset shooter than sun.
Yes, that would definitely suit you.
Right up my alley there, but you know, get up if I need to.
Amazing trees over there too, I remember.
Yeah, yeah. I did a beautiful trip here down the Okarito. Oh, this is good old Matheson. Oh, there's the 100 geese.
Oh
See
yeah.
them all? And they're quieting down a little bit, but they're doing enough ripples and movement to kind of um, spoil the reflections there. And funny enough, that even though I was there at 5 a.m., the best shooting was actually at about 9:30 when this cloud came through and the mountains cleared. Um, but yeah, it's a classic, beautiful spot. Like even though a lot of people go there, it's just well worth doing. And this is the last. This is the kayaking trip I did. Did a solo trip for about 4 hours at the Okarita Lagoon, which is the largest kind of wetland lagoon there is in the South Island. I think in
And
New
then
Zealand.
the day finished very differently to what you were expecting by the sounds.
Yeah, this is where I was when the phone tinkled and the pilot's like, "Oh, yeah, we've got a spot, but you got to be here in 3 hours." I was like, "Whoa!" I'm
Actually,
sort
I'm
of
pretty sure that's where Andres Apps used to live there too. In it,
absolutely it is. Yeah,
yeah.
and he had a gallery there for years as well.
Mm.
He's actually moved to Littleton now, and he's got a little bit of house stuff going on, but he's still ticking. They all know each other. There's only about 60 people that live down there, with 6 families, and they all know each other. But something about it. This
How
is
did you get the
one of the most.
kayak? Just out of interest, is it there a rental business there or?
Yeah, there's a rental business there. Just one family, one couple, and their little and their kids, and they're pretty knowledgeable and pretty switched on. But that was just, oh my God, it was so peaceful. Um, what's that one? We'll just double check. Oh,
Until you get the phone call.
oh yeah, yeah. Like this is the some phone videos are going into the Fiordland Valley just to give you a sense of the grandeur of the place, and this is the road they're looking at closing to the public. And as you can see, it's it's a world class drive. It's unbelievable. Um, and just the scale of it, that's shooting like super wide. If you have any issues with epilepsy, don't watch this one. It's going through the
Oh,
tunnel. Um, and
wow.
I don't know what's
You're
happened to
getting
that. Like,
sleepy. You're getting sleepy.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, anyway, I'll probably end things there, but yeah, like I had another sort of month or two after, well, probably about another month on the North Island
Even
after
your
this trip,
home
actually.
screen looks like Milford Sound on the
Oh
graphic.
yeah, that's anyway, it's yeah, real privilege. In fact, oh, here's my mate Craig, who's writing to me right now. Here you go, brother. He's just like, that's funny. I don't know if he's watching or if that's a fluke. It looks like it might have been a fluke. Speaking of
Well, no,
which,
that
so
was
thanks again. Oh, you go.
I was just gonna say it was completely inspiring and mesmerizing, and you've got it'd be hard to know which shot to choose to show people first, and all I can hope is that you
Oh,
can get an online gallery or something going where you can share all of those beautiful photos with everyone, because or maybe keep some under the pillow for a competition or two maybe as
there's
well. But
a few under the pillow. I'll
oh, so
probably edit it.
we didn't actually see some of the better ones then.
Oh yeah, no, there's a few keepers. So I probably
Wow, there
edited
you
about
go.
a fifth of
Yeah,
it, maybe a quarter of it
I
so
was thinking
far,
there'd have
maybe a
to be a
quarter.
few color ones above that glacier there that would have been
Yeah.
particularly good. So yeah, there
Yeah,
you go.
I haven't managed to go. I haven't managed to get Australia. Oh, Craig's watching. Yeah, hey brother, good work. The big shout out to Craig for his hospitality and friendship. Yeah, it means a lot to me, brother. And we'll see if I get the time and money together, I'll shoot back over to judge the NZIP Awards and maybe hang out in your, your caravan again. Huge thanks to Rachel. She's such an exceptional person. And if you are in New Zealand anytime, she runs all sorts of different workshops. And
Yeah, it's Rachel
she's one of
Gillespie.
yeah, Rachel Gillespie. She's one of those down to
Mm.
earth, accessible, fun, and wonderful, educators as well. And so patient and such a great attitude towards everything and life in general. Beautiful family. And she's just got all the right values in all the right places. So she's just a special person to spend time with, irrelevant of the reason. I'm looking at my hair. It looks like a blow dry my hair or something. It's a bit weird. I don't know what's going on there, but if you want to
Time to
see
give it a
some of
shake.
those photographs, I did a lot of stories on my trip. So if you go on my Paul Hoelen Instagram account, there's about 7 or 8 stories there where I've got a lot of the images that I showed tonight, particularly the ones I edited for the clients from the trip. Rachel's already put up an expression of interest page for next year's trip. I think I put that in the show notes, or just email me directly if you're interested in next year. Um, but yeah, you could pick two different but very complimentary people to go with. Yeah. I'm looking forward to getting the testimonials from this trip. I think they're going to be pretty good.
Yeah, so like they'll be like,
It's
oh, we
not too
took so
often my
many
clients are
photos,
like,
I've got RSI on my finger now.
it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want to take any more photographs. I've got too many good ones. It's like that doesn't happen every day. So hats off to my beautiful clients too, especially Jill Edwards. She reached out to me in the first place, and Sunny and Pam and Colin from the Camberwell Club. Actually, there was a whole bunch from the Camberwell Club. Actually,
Oh,
Luke.
amazing.
Enjoy as well. And it was really that particular trip was sparked by Jill and her amazing adventurous spirit. She's done I don't know how many things in the world. I can't wait till she writes the book. Yeah, thanks to my good friend um oh sorry, blank. Jason Blair, president of NZOP, for putting me up and give me some good guidance on where to go as well. And Craig in particular reached out to give me some really great ideas about the kind of how you put out a post and you're like, oh, tell me where to go, give me some ideas, and people just go like give you one random thing, and you're like, well, I could have seen that anywhere. Craig just listed like about 10 or 15 places, half of which I've never heard of, and Rachel as well, that I literally had to research to find, and it really makes a trip like that because I it was a big trip down memory lane. I did a crazy trip up there in the back of I literally slept in the back of an escort van with no sleeping bag in midwinter for 2 weeks. One of my crazy uni day trips. Where we just saw a car on the side of the road that was for sale, and we knocked on the door and said, "Bro, can we borrow it for 2 weeks before you sell it?" We go on a road trip, and he's like, "What?" And in the end, he just gave it to us and said, "Oh, away you go, just bring it back safe." And we did we had 4 of us, I think, on a 2 week road trip around the whole of the South Island. And I left my sleeping bag behind, so I was wrapped up in the pieces of carpet in the boot of the car, trying not to freeze. But that was the last time I went to some of those places. And Fiordland, I literally haven't been there. Yeah, it was my good friend IKEA. Oh, he's watching as well. It was his son who loaned me his amazing bike. And yeah, it's rare that you get on a bike where the rider who set it up has nuanced it to utter perfection, so that everything about it was like a dream. So it's nice to have those little one-off experiences with things that you're probably not going to afford yourself. But yeah, sorry. It would have been nice to bounce off Benny a little bit as well. But at the same time, I felt like keeping the Māori name because we called the last show Aotearoa, and Te Wai Pounamu is a traditional name for down there. So hope that's not confusing for people. But at the same time, it's very honouring of the landscape, and the image itself really speaks to the place. And pretty much everywhere that you look at the thumbnail, you're going to get a description of where it is anyway. So. Yeah, thanks for letting me have the voice there, Luke. And sorry we didn't get it. It was actually meant to be on 2 weeks ago, but my mum needed my attention. There's a few things that came up with family at last minute, so it was really good that I was over there.
Oh,
So
absolutely. That's what it's all about. And yeah, it's really exciting to hear that you have an opportunity to maybe do it all again next year and try and find
oh, I
somewhere
can't
else
wait.
to
Can't wait, mate.
randomly go and get that itchy trigger finger sorted out.
Yeah, and that's got to be the most prolific landscape trip I've ever done, I think. Iceland was pretty close, but a lot of that time was spent dodging storms and not being able to stand up in the wind. Whereas pretty much every day out here was like unicorns and rainbows. It was
You
like, oh
probably don't need to take some photos for a while now. You're probably pretty happy
no,
just to,
it's very rare. I literally was getting to the point where I don't think I want to take another photograph, and I mean, you've known me for a while. Like, could you ever imagine that happening?
yes, I can't. Oh no, I mean I can't imagine it. Yeah,
I could
but I
never
know
imagine it for myself, and I
7 weeks
was
in
literally getting to that point
Antarctica,
where it's
I was the
like.
same.
I almost just had it. Like it's just been so good for so long. I need a break, and then I never had one. I just kept going. Although to be
No,
fair,
that's
I had a few weeks break up here. Although lots of basketball shoots and horse shoots and hockey shoots and soccer shoots with all the nephews and nieces.
that sounds amazing.
But yeah, so yeah, thanks for the voice tonight. Really special to share some of my home country and also to be lucky enough to have the opportunity to spend that much time on my own, actually, just reconnecting with a place that's so dear to me in a way that I had so much freedom and autonomy. Um, so yeah, very lucky to live a life that I lead. And it's the flip side of missing out on the trips to the Arctic and everything else was I get to do things like this.
Very good. And Rachel says thanks for the fab rap, mate. Awesome images. Kia kaha.
Oh
There
yeah,
you go.
Craig's like 4 4. Oh, that's right. Craig's upgrading to a 4x4. Beast soon. So that means he's going to be opening up to all sorts of places to get to. He's a bit of an aficionado with he's going to have a custom built one made at the moment, which is full
Ah,
forward drive. I think it might be one of the beautiful Mercedes ones.
yes.
I'm trying to remember, but yeah. Anyway, so I'll be taking you up on that, Craig, when you're ready, mate. And shout out to the old school backpack. Woohoo! We're in the old retro. It was literally when I was working selling backpack stuff that I literally started taking photographs for the first time on these solo trips. So big trip down memory lane, but at the same time, every single photograph I've shown tonight is brand new and not really been seen anywhere. So
Yeah, and
so
you're still on the top of your game, Paul. They were incredible. So yeah, kudos
so
to
fun,
you.
so fun to share.
And
Yeah,
you've
thanks,
got a
Lucky.
hard now. You can just have a nice sleep at home and just make sure you back up all your hard drives so you don't have
Oh yeah, I've
to.
just started to do that now. It's sort of like 3.2 terabytes or something, just slowly backing up in the background.
Yeah,
Not
very
quite
good.
on 47 days in the Antarctic like you, mate, but it's still pretty prolific.
Oh yeah, yeah. When you shoot 4 terabytes on a trip, you've had a good time.
So Luke and we're going to spend a little bit more time getting a bit more ahead of the curve because we've had a bit of a few gaps in the show this year in particular. So we're going to get a bit more on top of that. That being said, we're still pretty impressive that 4 years later we're still going.
Yes, and
Just
it's
off,
definitely
off
something we're
our own
committed
bat.
to.
With,
It's an amazing thing to be able to share learning about new people and places and other things. And I mean, I learned so much just from tonight, even though I've been to a lot of the places Paul was showing. And so we get so much out of this as well. So hopefully you guys have as well. And yeah, thanks again, Paul, for showing us the amazing shots. And we'll let you know. If you haven't signed up to our mailing list, do sign up because we'll often it's the last minute, but we send out an email just letting you know what the show is going to be about and if it's on as well, that kind of thing. So do
yeah.
sign up to our
Also
mailing
we
list.
we keep you up to date with any of the different projects or workshops or different things that we're involved with as well. That's pretty much our main avenue of passing that information on. So. So yeah, it helps the show. It always yeah, YouTube's a funny thing. Like the more likes and everything else you have, the more it sort of supports the show. So click away. And thanks for your time, everyone. And I'm looking forward to a proper catch up with Luki. It's been a few months, so
Yes, yes,
let's
absolutely, mate.
let's catch up
We'll
soon, my
have to
friend.
do that. Catch you later,
And
guys. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.
all
Bye.
the best for your shoots, Luki, coming up.